Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the November 11th, 2014 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It's my privilege to call this meeting to order. There are copies of our agenda on either side of the room. If you haven't already done so, please feel free to pick up a copy and you can follow along with our proceedings tonight. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on our agenda tonight, as well as a segment under item 4 that is devoted to public comments of a general nature with respect to items that are not appearing on our agenda tonight. It is our proud custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, so at this point I'd like to invite everyone to please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'd now like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Olson?
Here.
Commissioner Rankin? Here. Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 3, which pertains to minutes of prior council meetings. We have one set of minutes to approve tonight. Those are the minutes from our regular council meeting of November 4th, 2014. If any members of the village council have any questions, comments, or corrections to those minutes? Seeing that there are none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Everyone's in favor. Those minutes are approved. I'd like to pause for a moment here because, as we all know, today is Veterans Day. Originally, it was proclaimed in 1919 by President Wilson as Armistice Day. November 11th is now recognized as a day to honor American veterans and to show our appreciation to reservists, active duty military personnel for their service to the country. This Veterans Day also looms large in my mind because my 90-year-old father-in-law, who recently passed away, was a World War II veteran who served as a private first class in the Army, served in France, and also fought at the Battle of the Bulge. And rather than canceling tonight's meeting, because we do have a fair amount of business to do, we thought instead we would take the opportunity to show some appreciation for our veterans and take a few minutes to do that. In particular, we thought it would be appropriate to take a few minutes to recognize and thank the veterans and reservists within our own organization here at Village Hall. And I just want to point out that when I asked the question, how many folks do we have here who are veterans or reservists in the military, and we have quite an impressive list. The current list of village employees within the Village of Downers Grove who either have served or are currently serving in the military include Kelly Chris in our planning department, Bill Rogers in building services. In our police department includes Mike Eddy, Rich Johnson, Tom Powers, Jim Edwards, Rick Giancarlo, and Jim Minute. The fire department also has veterans, and those include John Stover, Sigmund Markowski, Quinn Triplett, and Mike Baldwin. So while I did not insist that they all come here tonight to receive this recognition, I thought that we would acknowledge them, and perhaps everyone can join me in a round of applause to thank them for their service to our country. Of course, it wouldn't be a proper recognition without a proclamation, so I do have a proclamation which I will read, and it will include the names of those folks that I just mentioned. Whereas Veterans Day is commemorated every year on November 11th to mark the armistice signed by the Allied nations in Germany, which took effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. And whereas Veterans Day is intended to thank all veterans for their service and to acknowledge their contributions to our nation. And whereas the Village of Downers Grove is honored to pay tribute to the fallen, the missing, the wounded, and the millions who have served and those awaiting their return, as well as the veterans who call Downers Grove their home. And whereas the village is proud to recognize the following employees who have served or are currently serving in the military: Mike Baldwin, Kelly Chris, Mike Eddy, Jim Edwards, Rick Giancarlo, Rich Johnson, Sigmund Markowski, Jim Minette, Tom Powers, Bill Rogers, John Stober, and Quinn Triplett. Now therefore, I, Martin T. Tully, the Mayor of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2014 as Downers Grove's Salute to Military Veterans Day in the Village of Downers Grove, and call upon all residents to join me in honoring our American heroes. And one other thing that I also wanted to do is invited a special guest here tonight. As many of you know, the U.S. Army has a recruiting office in Downers Grove. You've probably gone by it many times at 63rd and Main. And very proud and privileged to have with us here tonight Sergeant First Class John Herndon from the U.S. Army Recruiting Office in Downers Grove. He's here tonight, and on behalf of the entire village of Downers Grove and everyone here, I'd just like to come out and shake your hand and thank you for your service, Sergeant. Thank you. And if you'd like, I should know better by now.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you'd like, please, the podium is yours. No obligation, but if you'd like to share a few words with us, you've certainly earned it. Thank you.
All right. Just want to take a few moments to, like the mayor said, remember those who have served before me, those who are currently serving with me, and the future generations that will soon be serving after I take this uniform off. Without them, this nation wouldn't be what it is today, I don't believe. And just want to appreciate, or say I appreciate all the recognition and the council having me here tonight.
Thank you very much, Sergeant. Thank you again for your service.
Thank you.
And I know some of my colleagues may also want to add a few words, so I will just close with this. I was looking for some words to say tonight, and I actually came across some words that I will borrow from one of our colleagues, State Representative Patty Belloc. And so I'm with attribution, I'm not plagiarizing, this comes straight from her. Quote, "To our veterans, regardless of the branch of the U.S. Armed Forces in which you served, your sacrifice in defense of our freedoms demonstrates the finest of American traditions, duty, honor, and love of country. Please know how much your service has inspired and lifted up the aspirations of countless Americans. Your service not only brings honor and pride to your family and friends, but to our nation itself," unquote. And I will leave it with that, and I'm sure some of my colleagues may want to add some words of their own, so I'll give you an opportunity to do that. Again, no obligation, but I didn't want to monopolize the conversation. And thank you very much. And with that, we will move to item 4 on the agenda, which is reserved for public comments, as indicated earlier. Public comments of a general nature with respect to matters not appearing on tonight's agenda. If there are any members of the audience who have any questions or comments of a general nature with respect to items not on tonight's agenda, please come down to the podium, and we would welcome hearing from you.
Good evening, Mayor Tully and Commissioners, staff. I have copies of my statement this time, and I was hoping that staff would help me share it with the council. And there should be enough for the staff as well. I'm Gordon Goodman. I live at 5834 Middaw. And last week I told the council that I think the village is not well served by doing away with the position of Director of Community Development. Permit me now to explain more about why this is true. Our last Director of Community Development left his position at just about the same time as the Village Council accepted the village's architectural and historical survey report on December 3rd, 2013. I'm not aware of any subsequent progress in implementing the policies and recommendations contained in the village's comprehensive plan that was adopted on October 5th, 2011. The village zoning map does now label as historic, in quotes, properties that are listed in the historical survey report, including several in the village's downtown area. Nevertheless, I know of no efforts to analyze and update the zoning district boundaries in the downtown area in light of the historic preservation policies, recommendations in the comprehensive plan, and the new data of the recent historical survey report. I think that the downtown business and downtown transition district boundaries established in June 2005 are now considerably out of date and substantially inconsistent with the policies and recommendations of the comprehensive plan with respect to historic preservation. Please accept for the record of this meeting the figure that I have prepared entitled Properties Proposed for Zoning Change from Downtown Business, that is DB, to Downtown Transition, labeled DT. This figure shows how the border of the downtown transition zoning containing 13 properties around the downtown business zoning would permit 6 properties identified as historic to continue to be used in a manner consistent with their preservation as historic resources of the village. Over the next several weeks, this subject will take on more importance as you consider a proposed special use permit for a 5-story, 55-unit condominium building in the 900 block of Maple Avenue. Thank you for your attention, and I would gladly answer any questions about my remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Goodman. Are there any questions of Dr. Goodman from members of the council? Not at this time. I think we're going to absorb what you've provided us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing that. Are there other questions or comments from the members of the audience with respect to items not appearing on tonight's agenda? Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll go right to item 5, which is reserved for council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to share with their colleagues and the rest of the community items of interest or goings on in the community. Start with Commissioner Barnett.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Olson. No report. Commissioner Jose.
No report, Mayor.
Commissioner Rankin.
No report, Mayor.
Commissioner Durkin.
Nothing.
Commissioner Newstead.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a lot of folks in the audience with us, so I'll give my normal spiel when we have a few people in attendance that might not normally be here. We have a lot of ways to stay connected with your village. On the front page of our website at downers.us, there are 2 areas. Network with us and stay connected. You can sign up for the Hometown Times, our Twitter, Facebook, e-news, RSS podcasts. There's lots of ways to stay informed and connected with your village and what's happening both every day and in case of any kind of emergencies with the community-wide notification. A lot of great stuff on our website. If you have a spare moment, take a look and you can continue to be informed as you go through your days. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have nothing to add at this point in time, so we'll move on to item 6, public hearings. We have no public hearing tonight. We'll go right to item 7, which is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to the consent agenda? Any questions or comments from members of the village council with respect to any items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Consent agenda passed unanimously. That brings us to item 8, our active agenda. And we have 4 items on the active agenda tonight, items A, B, C, and D. Take them in that order. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2015 budget in lieu of passage of an appropriation ordinance?
So moved.
Second. Are there any questions from the audience on this item? Any questions from the council? Commissioner Olson?
Or just questions?
Just questions. Commissioner Newstead?
I have a comment if we're ready for that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize we were parsing it that. But questions or comments? Go ahead.
I think, the fact that there may not be very many questions tonight shows that our budgeting process is not only award-winning, but also it allows this organization to communicate with our residents, gives us a chance to communicate with each other at less formal setting than here on Tuesday nights, and we're able to come up with a budget that is really well done, well informed, and allows us to hopefully all say yes tonight to lay the groundwork for 2015. I think the way that we go about budgeting just isn't in our budget, but it's the long-range plan, it's the strategic plans, it's all the planning that we do throughout the year, not just at budget time from October or September through now. There's a lot of hard work that goes into this throughout the year, and I think a special thanks is owed to our staff and all those that came out to share their opinions and comments with us at all the many budget meetings, but the finance department, all the departments really, manager's office really put this together for us and give us a great document to go through and read to be able to get to a point where we can continue the services that we offer to this village, and we offer them at a high level. I appreciate all the work that my colleagues and the residents have done with us in this budget and look forward to approval tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Olson, sorry about that.
Thanks, Mayor. I agree with Commissioner Newstad on I appreciate all the hard work by the staff from the village manager, the village budget office, all the way on down. I think there's some positive elements in this budget. I appreciate the staffing reductions, the slight decrease of the tax levy. These are things that I know our residents will appreciate. However, I have significant concerns specifically regarding the budgeting for the new village facilities project, and so I won't be supporting this budget tonight. I don't, as many of you may know, and probably comes as no surprise, I don't support moving forward with the village facilities project, and this budget includes $1.5 million for design work on a new police station and $4.5 million for the purchase and cleanup of the Ogden Avenue and Lacey site, as well as some other money for professional services. I think that it's been a fairly consistent position of mine that I don't support using the TIF money in Ogden Avenue for this purpose. I don't believe that, it's my opinion that TIF money should be used specifically and only for economic development purposes. And then, in my opinion, my judgment, I don't believe this is the case. TIF districts, and I know many of our residents are not familiar with TIF districts, but essentially what a TIF district is in a base year, and in the case of the Ogden Avenue TIF, that's 2001 was the base year. The property tax levy to all the other taxing bodies is held, all the taxing bodies is held flat for 23 years, and the increment between that base level and the property tax that goes up each year, that increment goes into a fund for urban renewal, economic development, however you want to put that. That money that is in that increment is money that isn't going to other taxing bodies in this area. And I think that it's important that in any usage of TIF funds, which is funding that would have otherwise gone to our schools, to parks, et cetera, that we be using that specifically for economic development. So thus I can't support budgeting in this manner. I appreciate, again, I do appreciate all the work that staff has done on this budget. I appreciate the dialogue and the process that we've gone through, but I think coming as no surprise that this portion of the budget is a specific concern to me, and I won't be supporting this tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments, observations? Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be supporting the budget. I think it reflects, as Commissioner Newstad and Commissioner Olson said, a great deal of hard work on behalf of everybody here, village staff and the village council. It is a balanced budget, reflects our commitment that's continuing to excellent municipal services, and it's got a small tax decrease in it. And all in all, I think that adds up to a great budget, and I'll be supporting it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? I'll just add, I'm also going to be supporting this budget. The use of TIF dollars at this point is premature to talk about. I mean, realize the budget contemplates that possibility, but we'd have to have a separate conversation and a vote on that actual event down the road. I think it's a little premature to get into that at this point, and certainly not a reason to vote against the entire budget, at least in my opinion. The budget is the product, as my colleagues have said, of a great deal of work and a lot of planning, and it reflects a balanced budget with healthy reserves and a good solid investment in our infrastructure, which is obviously very important. We would have to have something in the budget here for facilities, and whether it was what is currently being contemplated or $10 million in Band-Aid repairs, we'd have to have something in this budget to reflect the fact that the facilities are simply not up to snuff and are falling apart literally around us. That's just something that needs to be addressed. The budget would have to reflect something. It might not be Plan A or Plan B or Plan C or Plan D, but it would have to be one of the four of those. So this budget simply reflects planning for one scenario, but it would have to reflect some scenario no matter what. It's a budget. You have a lot of decisions to make in terms of facility planning down the road, and there'll be more votes on specific items and discussion of specific items at that point in time. So certainly at this juncture, this is something that I can support. And when we get to the tax levy, we can talk about the reduction of that tax levy. Any other questions or comments from members of the council at this time? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Nay.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, that matter passes 6-1. That brings us to item 8B as in boy. Do I have a motion to adopt an estimate 2014 aggregate tax levy for the Village of Downers Grove?
Mayor Tully, I move to find and determine that the aggregate levy for the Village of Downers Grove is defined in the Illinois Truth in Taxation Law estimated to be necessary to be raised by taxation for 2014 upon the taxable property in Downers Grove is $24,283,850. This amount is based upon an estimated levy of $3,968,669 for corporate and police, $2,850,000 for fire, $2,261,516 for police pension, $2,330,108 for fire pension, $4,662,087 for library operating, $626,316 for library 2013 series debt service, and $443,100 for fire station number 2 2007 series debt service, and $1,018,500 for stormwater 2008 series debt service, $108,000 for Central Business District 2008B series debt service, $1,049,050 for Central Business District and Fairview Avenue 2009 series debt service, $387,950 for Central Business District 2010 series debt service, $420,400 for Central Business District 2010B series debt service, $1,397,118.76 for Capital Projects 2012 series debt service, $1,551,650 for Central Business District 2013A series debt service, and $347,925 for refunding bonds 2014 series debt service. The estimated levies for Special Service Area Number 2 CBD Special Service Area is $247,000. The estimated levy for Special Service Area Number 4 Green Acres Special Service Area is $0. The estimated levy for Special Service Area Number 5 Atwood Special Service Area is $0. The estimated levy for Special Service Area Number 6 Fairview Fire Protection District Special Service Area is $74,460. The estimated levy Special Service Area Number 7, Dunham Subdivision is $0. A public hearing will be held on these proposed levies on December 2nd, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Village Council Chambers. The adoption of the proposed levies will be held on December 9th, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Village Council Chambers. Staff is also directed to prepare ordinances to abate certain 2014 tax levies.
Second.
And taxes and title are extra. Professional driver on closed track, do not attempt this at home.
That's right.
We did not pick on him because of his last vote to make him do that.
I don't know, normally I do the second one, but he jumped to it, so maybe it's penance.
Any questions or comments on this item from any members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? I'll just make my comment here about the levy. This is the fourth time in a row that the property tax levy, when you accept out the pension, public safety pension obligations that are dictated to us by Springfield, this is the fourth time in a row that our property tax levy here for the Village of Downers Grove portion of your tax bill has either remained flat or has decreased. Yes, it's a modest decrease, but I think even in this day and age, keeping things flat or going down at all, I think when all is said is done with the abatements, it's going to be about $180,000 lower property tax levy than last year. I think it's a pretty significant accomplishment, and it is an indication, as was mentioned earlier by my colleagues, of good fiscal management and good stewardship on behalf of the village. It's not easy to do that. You look around us, you see a lot of other political bodies that that's certainly not the case. So the fact that we're able to do this is not by accident. It's by a lot of hard work by a lot of people. And as my colleagues have said earlier, I want to extend my appreciation to all those who work very, very hard to continue to do more and more with less and less until eventually we ask you to do everything with nothing. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter passes unanimously. That brings us to item 8C as in Charlie. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the liquor code provisions of the Village of Downers Grove?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, that matter passed unanimously. That brings us to item 8, D as in David. Do I have a motion seeking to amend ordinance 00-05766 to narrow the exemption to limit it to churches and houses of worship only? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to adopt an ordinance exempting certain property from the stormwater utility fees as presented.
So moved.
Any questions or comments from members of the audience? We have some folks coming down.
Do you need a second?
I thought I heard a
I heard
second.
stereo.
In stereo, both.
Okay.
Did we have a second? Did we have a second?
Who seconded that motion?
I think Commissioner Barnett made it.
I think they both said I move.
I'll second it.
Doesn't matter.
That's what I was asking. Sorry.
We have a first, we have a motion from Commissioner Barnett, we have a second from Commissioner Newstead. Good evening, Dr. Goodman, welcome back.
Good evening, Mayor. I'm still Gordon Goodman, 5834 Midaw. And on the final page of the staff report, it used to be green sheets, but now it's white. The plan would be revised as follows, and explains what the impact of the reduction of $218,000, which is, I think, the estimate associated with exempting all properties that are not subject to property tax from the stormwater utility fee. And it seems to me that these are rather severe restrictions and delays, and I'm very unhappy to see this proposed and so widely supported among our elected officials. I've said that before, and I just wanted to go on record again. But the other question I had was that as we were looking at this over the years, there were some very nice, I thought, proposals from the staff for cost sharing and for ways in which the village would participate with the churches and other institutions to improve stormwater management on their property. I wondered what the status of those programs is, and will we be doing away with those programs, or what is going to happen? I thought those were very positive steps, and I don't think the taxpayers should pay that solely. Perhaps the level of cost sharing should be substantially adjusted to make the public participation substantially less, but I'm hoping that that series of programs doesn't die. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to answer your question, you're probably referring to the stormwater grant program that was adopted by the village council a while ago as part of the measure to address some of the concerns we heard from the 22 property owners, which are our community churches in the community. The village, I think back in October, approved the first grant application under that stormwater grant program to assist churches with stormwater management, water quality, and a reduction in impervious area. The First Church of Christ Sciences, will receive a reimbursement of about $24,000 as an applicant into that program. So we have one successful applicant who's going to be receiving funds, which was part of a program that was designed to address some of the financial concerns that we had heard about. So that, as far as I know, is going forward. What becomes the program if this motion passes tonight is presented is another question. It may be something appropriate to bring up at a later point in time.
The current set of guidelines requires any recipient of that grant to be actively paying stormwater fees. So by this action, if approved tonight, effectively that program would no longer exist because it's limited to the same group of properties that would be exempt from paying the fee.
So then that begs the question, if those dollars are still budgeted for next year, they would have to be adjusted in the current budget, the one that we just adopted.
You can proceed with the adoption. The expenses planned in the FY15 budget were not affected by this potential item. They will be reflected in the FY16 budget, and those
Got it.
program funds will not be included.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Waldeck.
Good evening. Oh, we are council. Bill Waldeck, 1409 Willard Place here in Downers Grove. I'm going to ask you to please pay attention because last week, while you were discussing whether or not to exempt religious and/or non-religious affiliated groups, the 501c3s, comments were made by several of you indicating that you haven't heard from the non-religious organizations, or that if you would exempt the churches, you might hear from the non-religious organizations. I sit in the back at most council meetings, and I heard from such service organizations. To add insult to injury, I myself spoke on behalf of these organizations and even personally represented one organization and its impact, and the stormwater fee impact. So it leaves one to question how many representatives you need for some people to actually pay attention. That applies to some of you, not all. Mayor, you asked the question, what has changed? We all had the same documents, the same data, the same comments on case law, and knew that there were going to be detrimental impacts to religious and non-religious service groups. And up until late September, there were very strong language saying that there should be no such changes. You even asked if it was the time of year, and I won't presume you meant the silly season or the election season. I won't do that. But that's the way many of us interpreted it. Mayor, you and I have been on the opposite sides of the stormwater utility for more than a decade, but neither of us has been on both sides of the issue. I have categorized 3 reasons why several members may have changed their mind on the issue. First is that the stormwater utility is truly a tax. Case law may indicate that it is a fee, but there is language that could lead that one would believe that it could be ruled a tax on appeal. And that could even result in refunding fees already collected. After all, the difference between a property tax and a stormwater fee, or more popularly called a rain tax, is that a property tax is based on the size of the property you own and what you have on it, whereas a stormwater fee is based on the size of the property you own and what you have on it. Wait a minute, there's no difference. The argument that religious organizations pay other utility taxes is not necessarily true. First, they do pay utilities like electric, gas, and cable, but these are optional and their usage is controlled. Technically, it's the utility that pays the tax when it passes through to the customers and is allowed to specify line items. The IRS and other agencies will not prosecute the individuals that don't pay the taxes, but they will prosecute the utility. If people have a problem with religious institutions not paying their fair share, then they need to change the Constitution and associated case law, not attempt to get around the law with word games. The second reason why some may have changed their mind has to do with community and precedent. Before there was a village council, there was a Downers Grove community. It was the community that decided to incorporate making you elected officials community leaders. You are not the only game in town, nor are you the oldest body of leaders. There are the schools, the park district, the sanitary district, library, all taxing bodies. But there's also the religious community leaders, the service community, the business community, the Downers Grove Watch, Pierce Downers Heritage Alliance, and many others that all have community leaders. Enlightened village councils before you recognize the role of their other organizations and traditionally waive fees for these groups. Both non-religious affiliated and religious, because they recognize the value of these organizations and the service and value to the community as a whole. While the amount may be higher than usual, there's strong precedent for waiving, not charging those fees. Third reason for changing the mind on the issue is one that seems to be apparent to most who have been watching the meetings and comments, and the words and the actions. And I will close with a brief story, a few lines from Luke 18. It's short and only a few verses. I'll cover Luke 18, 2 to 5 if you want to look it up. The full text is 1 to 8. He said, in a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor regarded man. And there was a widow in that city who kept coming to him and saying, "Vindicate me against my adversary." For a while he refused, but afterward he said to himself, "Though I neither fear God nor regard man, yet because this widow bothers me, and I will vindicate her, or she will wear me out by her continued coming." The popular title of this parable is The Unjust Judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waldeck. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, sir. I'm Joe Potts, 216 Lincoln, and I wrote down my thoughts on this topic. Well, it's the holiday season. Time to spend more, eat more, preferably in beautiful Downers Grove retail and restaurants. It's also time for many of the churches to ask their members to buy a poinsettia to decorate the church for the Christmas season. Members are asked to donate $15 to $20 for a small one, $25 to $30 for a larger plant. So if 50 families donate $20 each, that's $1,000 for 50 plants that will probably be dead by February. Just in time for churches to ask their members to donate $15 to $30 to decorate the sanctuary with Easter lilies. My point is, if churches can ask for thousands of dollars for something as frivolous and decorative as flowers, surely they can ask their members to give up one pizza, one movie, one fancy coffee, one less present under the tree. You get the picture. Put that money towards paying their stormwater fee to help their own members, friends, neighbors, and community alleviate the stormwater and flooding issues that are partially caused by the large buildings and paved surfaces on their property. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, sir. Good evening. Mr. Humphreys, welcome.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Humphreys. I'm a lifelong member of resident of Downers Grove. I'm also a lifelong member of the First Congregational United Church of Christ of Downers Grove, and I also work with many Downers Grove not-for-profit groups. I'll be very uncharacteristically brief. Religious and not-for-profit groups provide essential services to the Downers Grove community, which are significantly impacted by the stormwater fee, especially as it compounds by almost 9% over the years. I believe a clear case has been made, and I believe it's the right thing to do to exempt them. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, my name is Alice Dornan. I'm the property administrator for First Christian Church on 63rd Street in Downers Grove. I was very pleased to see the article in the Tribune yesterday about First Church of Christ scientists receiving the grant. However, their project is going to cost a total of $32,000. Wonderfully, the village is going to provide them with almost $24,000. My church looked into this type of grant program a year and a half ago, and for us to be able to, we can't afford to do the work where we could get any benefit from that grant. We have less than 50 members, most of them on a fixed budget, and we currently pay almost $2,400 in stormwater fees. The church may not be there much longer.
Thank you, ma'am. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Neil Summers, 4935 Highland Avenue. Could you fill me in on the TIF financing that we did for Pete's Fresh Market? Was that $550,000 that was given to them?
Actually, that's a topic that isn't on our agenda tonight. It was something that probably should have come up earlier.
Yeah, no, I got that notice the day of the meeting, and so I just wanted to bring that into context here with the revenue that you're going to be getting from the churches. So it's $220,000 a year from the churches, roughly?
For this year?
Yeah.
For the portion of the stormwater utility fee, approximately.
So, and then the TIF finance that we gave Pete's Fresh Market, that was $518,000?
I don't have those numbers at my fingertips, sir.
Does anyone know?
I'm sure we do know.
Does anyone on the panel know?
I can look it up. I'd be happy to talk with you afterwards.
Were there any conditions on that TIF financing?
There always are, sir.
Can you tell me?
Again, I'd be happy to look them up for you. That's something I'd have to look at the actual agreement between the village and the developer for that project.
Okay, so we've got, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the TIF financing balance negative?
On Ogden Avenue? No, sir.
No, for the village.
I'm not following you.
It's $1 million and what, $1.3 million in the hole, I think, or 1.5 now?
No, sir, that's not correct.
Okay, so.
There's a couple TIFs.
Okay, so where are we on the balance? Because we're going to have to, the notice I got was a levy to help finance the TIF balance, which is negative.
Not on Ogden Avenue.
Okay, well, total, what is it?
Well, there's two different TIFs.
Okay, what are the TIFs?
One is the downtown.
Okay.
Which is nowhere near Fresh Time. And the other
Okay,
is
well,
Ogden Avenue.
on balance, are they positive or negative?
They're two different things.
On balance, are they positive or negative?
But if you were asking me to take the amount of one and add it with the other one and come up with a number.
Does it matter if it's Ogden Avenue or downtown?
I believe they are accounted for differently. Separate.
The expenditures are also severely restricted. They're not just general funds of the village. It does in fact matter.
Okay, so are we not raising, are we going to be imposing a new tax to make up a difference?
The downtown TIF may get to that point. It has
No,
not- it
in
has-
the,
Let me answer the question.
Yeah.
Okay. The Ogden Avenue TIF, the answer is most likely no. These are 23-year windows. The Ogden Avenue TIF, the answer is most likely no. The downtown TIF is much closer to that point. The expenditure of those funds, however, is severely restricted for certain uses. You heard Commissioner Olson talk about that. It seems as though the direction here is to try and make some sort of equivalency between the two.
one of them is negative,
And
right?
the TIF money that is accumulated or that's used to service debts are a certain tax structure that has nothing to do with the stormwater utility.
No, I understand that, but
It seems like there's a relationship intended here, and they're not the same at all.
Well, but
It's important to
on one
understand.
hand, we've got a negative TIF.
No.
Okay,
And on one hand, we don't have a negative TIF.
one of them isn't negative.
That's not correct.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay, so there we go. So it will be negative, thus the levy increase in 4 or 5 years. I think it said you have to refinance some bonds.
We may have to do that when we get to that point in time, but obviously we would be looking at what the circumstances were at that time.
Yeah.
It's sort of like saying, will you be able to pay your mortgage in 5 years? Right now, you'd say yes, but you have to look at your circumstances in 5 years.
No, I know, I just, it's interesting to me as a living in the village where I see, okay, we want to go after churches for $218,000, and we're going to be in the hole for giving Meyer Incorporated $518,000 to help build a grocery store in Ogden Avenue.
That's just completely, you're mixing apples with elephants, sir. It just.
I know, but as a citizen who pays taxes, you say to yourself, wow, this is interesting how this operates, you know, so.
Yeah, I understand, but I don't mean to debate you, but that doesn't work that way. You're reminding me of the commercial with the woman who puts all her pictures up on the wall and says, I posted pictures to my wall, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, how does it work?
Sir, I'd be happy to talk with you after the meeting, but this is actually something that is not on our agenda tonight.
Yeah.
We had a segment for public comment earlier this evening. Would have been happy to take it up with you. And it's as you can tell, it's a conversation that requires, number one, understanding the Ogden Avenue TIF finances. But then you're also talking about the downtown TIF, which has nothing to do.
Why do we have two TIFs?
Because they were adopted a number of years ago to spur economic development.
And then, but if one's positive, one's negative, I mean, and then you have to levy taxes on one. If one's positive, why do we have to increase the taxes in 3 years to pay for that?
Because they're completely separate pots. You just
Yeah.
can't mix them together. It's not the way it works.
Yeah, but when our tax dollars go into the one pot, right? I mean, I don't write out my tax bill to TIF Ogden.
No, sir.
TIF, okay, so that's
We're
my
not
whole
doing that at
point.
all right now, so I'm not quite sure why you're saying that. There's a direction, as Commissioner Barnett said, with the downtown TIF, which has got nothing to do with Fresh Time.
Okay.
That in its current trajectory, there may be an issue we have to address down the road.
No, there is an issue. From the thing I got sent to my house, there's an issue.
There's
So
an issue
that's my whole point of
there's an
coming up
issue
to
that
speak.
very likely will have to be addressed down the road, that's correct.
Okay, so my whole point is that going after non-for-profit churches who obviously add value to the community, they go out of their way to help a lot of people. You know, and then we're gonna go help Meyer to build something on Ogden Avenue, even if it's positive. Even if it's positive, I just think that just needs to be shown. People need to understand that, so maybe we can talk sometime about that, and, you know, I'd appreciate hearing more detail.
I think I
about it.
understand what your point is about asking not-for-profits to pay anything for stormwater management. I understand that point, but it really has nothing to do with the Ogden Avenue TIF.
Well, as a taxpayer, $1 into taxes, I don't say, okay, well, that's going to the TIF on Ogden, Dunkin' Donuts.
So it's not going to.
Yeah.
You're not paying $1 to the TIF
So
on
the
Ogden,
TIF
that's the disconnect here.
Right,
Okay,
there's no-
so explain then what it is then. Why would we have to raise taxes to pay the TIF?
Well, first of all, Ogden Avenue, there's no indication that's.
Okay, so the downtown one, you keep sparsing it. The
Well-
downtown one's gonna be negative 3 or 5 years, depending on what it was. It was going to what, like 1.5 million in the hole to 3.5 or something?
It's a 23-year period. There is a point in time where there's some actions may have to be taken.
What are those actions?
Oh, when we get to that.
What is a levy?
I'm sorry, sir?
What is a levy?
A levy is.
A tax.
Well, yes, it is.
Okay, so
Property tax.
that's all I'm trying to make the point of. We could, you know.
No, I think I got your point.
Okay, hey, thanks a lot for your
I got
time.
your point. No worries, thank you.
All right.
I'd be happy to talk to you about TIF financing and the projections, things down the road, but
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I think
that's your point.
You know, I just want to make a point, you know, especially since I was the first one to bring up TIF in this meeting. But the TIF districts are funded by the increment in the district. So, this is, you know, the year zero, here's the year zero for 23 years. This is the amount going to the other taxing bodies. Property tax continues to go up. The increment, that triangle, that's what funds. That's the increment that funds the TIF district. So, just to try to be a little bit clear, because I know TIF financing is very confusing, especially the general public.
it can be generally confusing, period.
Even I find it confusing. I have to refresh my memory on it frequently.
Thank you. Other questions or comments on this item from the audience? Yes, please, sir.
Good evening.
And I will take no questions on the water fund.
If I had one to give, I might actually do so. My name is Chris James, 636 Crescent Drive, Downers Grove. Proud resident of Downers Grove here for 13 plus years. I want to speak to make the amendment to the proposed amendment in the sense that as a resident, I'm double taxed as a part of, as a giving member of a congregation, in the sense that I gladly will pay my water bill now, utility fee, as a member of the congregation. I pay that as well, and that double sense of double taxation there. But also as a pastor at Emmanuel Lutheran in Downers Grove, I see that the dollars that are used on our shoestring budget to take care of people are those who are most on the edge, those who are most disenfranchised, for those who come and a bag of groceries makes a difference between their children having a healthy meal or having an unhealthy meal. These changes affect families so profoundly, and we scrape together what we can to help as many as we can to affect some of these bottom line dollars have a legitimate impact on our community and those that we're able to help. And I wish that we could get $25 per poinsettia, and we get 6. We're German Lutherans. We tend to be a little on the cheap side, and we only have 20 to 25. So those $120 to $125 doesn't quite cover our utility fee. Makes a big difference in people's lives. I appreciate your consideration of the new amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your comments. Any other questions or comments on this item from any members of the audience? All right, thank you for all being here and sharing those comments with us. Questions or comments from members of the Village Council?
Mayor.
Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think it's going to come as a shock to anybody that I'm going to oppose this. This represents an 8% drop in our stormwater utility revenue. These are dollars that would be coming in to help ameliorate the stormwater problems that we have here in Downers Grove. If we don't act to replace that revenue, we're going to see a reduction in maintenance activity, we're going to see a reduction in capital activity. These things are undisputed. With the stormwater problems that we have in our village right now, that is unacceptable to me. So without a commitment to find those dollars to solve the problems that we have in our village, to make sure that our residents don't continue to flood and that our businesses don't continue to flood unnecessarily, I cannot support removing 8% of the revenue from the stormwater utility. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Olson?
I think this proposal, I know I've struggled with this, but fundamentally, I think that we need to eliminate the stormwater utility. There's been a lot of talk up here that we're learning through the process, and I think, I've learned a lot. I think our experience shows that this is not the best way to fund stormwater projects. I don't believe it's more equitable, and I think that, as some have said, it's a tax without the benefits of being a tax. So I am very concerned about the current direction of moving forward with it, continuing with stormwater utility, and hope we might consider moving to the previous model, keeping it within our property taxes. So I think that, for numerous reasons, creating an unfriendly business climate, I know I've heard significant resident feedback, negative feedback on the utility itself. I think that this is, major concern. So just wanted to leave it at that, and hope that is something that, as we move forward from this item and make this change, that then we can perhaps consider that in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm not sure what empiric evidence you're referring to, but I understand your comments. Other questions or comments from members of the council on this item? From my standpoint, and what I'm going to say is not going to come as any surprise, I think I've said it 2 or 3 times now leading up to these meetings, but as explained, I think last council meeting, the council meeting before that, maybe even the one before that, the parable was a good one. I see where things are going, I saw where the wind's blowing, and as I said before, and as I shared with Pastor Scott Oberle earlier today, as well as some others, I can and will support a narrow exemption that would exclude the 22 properties that are the homes of our communities, documented churches and houses of worship. I said that last week, I said that the week before. However, the proposal to exclude all tax-exempt parcels, including entities such as the Illinois Tollway Authority and the United States Post Office, nobody can convince me adds any community value beyond what they're paid to do, needlessly and unjustifiably goes too far, and, as Commissioner Jose mentioned, may ultimately cause harm to our community's commitment to stormwater management and flooding mitigation. Carving out the 22 properties I don't think is ultimately going to have that impact. But carving out all tax-exempt parcels very well may. Do we know? Hard to say. Kind of like with the gentleman's comments about the downtown TIF, it may, but we're not there yet. But I think it's a risk that we don't need to take and therefore shouldn't. Plus, as I've said before, I think if we're going to exempt all property tax exempt parcels and risk the impact upon our stormwater management program and the impact upon the residents who may have their property taxes impacted by this, which is something that seems to be lost in the conversation, that's certainly something that should not be done without the understanding and support of the broader community that will bear the consequences. And I'm not just talking about other not-for-profits, I'm talking about the broader community, the single-family property owners who will be picking up this tab at the end of the day. It will be a shift to their property tax bills. So this will, it's no debate about it, this will raise property taxes down the road in some way, shape, or form. But again, at this point, it's hard to say. Therefore, if a motion to amend the current proposal was made and seconded to limit the exclusion to our 22 churches, I had said before that I would vote in favor of it. But because there was no one who made that motion, no one who seconded it, And for the record, I can't make that motion, nor can I second it. It's the privilege of the position. But because no such motion was made and there was no such second, there was no such vote on a narrow exclusion, I cannot in good conscience support the overbroad, in my opinion, exemption of all property taxes on parcels. I view that as an extreme and unwarranted measure. I understand that those who believe we should have no stormwater utility at all would have no problem with it because they think we should have no stormwater utility at all. I get that. But in the context of a stormwater utility, which is what we have, I cannot in good conscience support such an extreme and unwarranted measure. I would have supported and will support a narrow exclusion that would address the issues that we have heard from the representatives of our community churches and houses of worship for the last 3 years, that I would support. But this goes too far. So I will be, for that reason, voting against it in the interest of the other people of the Village of Downers Grove who will be, in my opinion, impacted by this. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Nay.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Nay. Matter passes 5-2, and that brings us to the end of our active agenda and brings us to item 9, our first reading or our workshop agenda. This is where we entertain items for presentation and discussion only. No action will be taken at this time on any of these items. As is custom, that might be voted on at a later point in time. As is customary, we ask village staff to present the item for discussion. So with that, I will ask Village Manager David Fieldman to begin with the first of what are many items that are on our workshop or first reading agenda tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. Many, many items, but really 4 topics. And the first topic tonight, the first 2 items on our first reading agenda concern the Nelson Meadows subdivision. And here to provide background information on this item is our planning manager, Stan Popovich.
Good evening, Mr. Popovich.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Mr. Field mentioned, I'll be discussing the first 2 items on the first reading, items A and B, regarding the subdivision improvement agreement and the special service area for Nelson Meadows subdivision. Nelson Meadows subdivision is a little southwest of downtown, shown here on the map at the northeast corner of Jefferson and Brookbank Drive. Here's an aerial of the area, and again, the subdivision as proposed is outlined here in red. I'd like to go over a brief history of the property. In 2006, the subdivision was approved for 11 lots with 11 single-family homes, 1 house on 1 lot. That property was platted, and those lots are legal lots of record. There was a subdivision improvement agreement at that time. The development did not move forward. In 2010, the original developer came forward with an addendum to the subdivision improvement agreement to construct the subdivision in 2 phases. Again, that proposal did not move forward. In 2013, the current developer, that's party to the subdivision improvement agreement, purchased the property. And we've been working with the developer for a while now here to provide updated engineering plans and specifications for construction. We've entered into are working on a subdivision improvement agreement to construct all the public improvements, primarily in line with what was approved in 2006. And the development has slightly changed, where there's a proposal to construct 10 single-family homes on 11 lots instead of 11 single-family homes on 11 lots, as was originally proposed. The subdivision improvement agreement, as I mentioned, has been revised. There's some of the key points that have been revised. I'll highlight 3. There's a little bit more understanding of tree preservation and protection of the walnut trees along the southeast corner of the property. We've included some cost for parkway tree replacement that the village will now plant. Additionally, we've clarified some building permit issuance requirements of when the village will issue building permits for individual properties on the subdivision. So we will ensure that the majority of the public improvements have been made prior to us issuing a building permit for any of the 10 houses that are proposed. And finally, we are identified the creation of a special service area to maintain the stormwater utilities should the homeowner association fail to maintain those utilities. The SSA was not in the 2006 agreement. What I'd like to do now is talk about a little bit about the changes. This is the proposed subdivision as it is today. All the lots have remained the same. There's no changes to lot lines at all. The biggest change really occurs around lot 8, which is where the previous stormwater detention was located and where the proposed stormwater detention will be located. In 2006, we got a crude graphic here. The dark line here at the bottom, which is the red line, was a proposed walkway here. The black line adjacent to the green area was a retaining wall. The green area here was an open green basin stormwater detention facility that would have been a dry basin bottom, and the black square was a proposed footprint for a home on that Lot 8. At the time, the property owner in Lot 8 would have been responsible for the maintenance of this basin. As proposed today, the entire lot will become a wet bottom basin for stormwater. It has grown in size based on the new stormwater ordinance requirements that have come into place most recently. Additionally, the retaining wall is slightly moved to the north just a little bit further up based on some neighborhood comment about the importance of those walnut trees, which can be seen here in this area, and I believe there's one other one in that area there. Additionally, the other change that you'll see is there's no house on Lot 8 anymore. Based on stormwater utility requirements, that house has been removed. This is why we have 10 houses on 11 lots. And then again, as I mentioned, this will be now a wet bottom basin, so there'll be plant materials growing in there. We anticipate about 6 inches of water at all times. There were some public comments at a neighborhood meeting about wildlife in there. The vegetation really eliminates geese, and there'll be some vegetation at the bottom that'll help control that as well. The other big change with the public improvements is the location of the water main. In 2006, this was supposed to be a blue line, showed the location of the water main. The developers agreed to relocate the water main along Nelson Court and then run between lots 6 and 7 and then north of lot 11 to tie back into the village water main along Carpenter Street. This really does help protect the walnut trees along the south property line there where the detention basin is. Additionally, the petitioner will be granting additional easements to the village. Those easements include easements here on Lot 8 to eliminate the building pad for the home. And then this utility easement that was a smaller easement will be extended to 20 feet to accommodate the water main. So those are the improvements. The developer has been working with the village and with the resident concerns to address a lot of those concerns on Lot 8 and the walnut trees particularly. One of the big concerns was where the construction entrance was going to be located. The construction entrance, as agreed upon in 2006, will be located on Carpenter Street. So that will be what was agreed to in 2006 will be carried forward here today in 2014. Additionally, these yellow boxes show the tree protection for the walnut trees and then the tree protection for the public parkway trees along Jefferson Street. There are specific details in the engineering plans that show our tree protection detail that will be provided for the protection of those trees. Additionally, there was a discussion on the total amount of trees. There are 34 trees that are going to be planted. I've just put the numbers in here. We don't know the exact spacing just based on the layout of the driveways, exactly where they'll be, so I didn't want to tie us down into anything, but there's going to be 7 trees along Carpenter Street, 7 around Nelson Court, 7 on the north side of Jefferson, and 13 on Brookbank Road, as the spacing as determined by the village forester. With regard to securities, there's going to be a letter of credit for the construction securities for the public improvements of the proposed development here in Nelson Meadow, and the village may draw upon the letter of credit if the developer fails to complete the public improvements in their 2-year time frame that's required. Additionally, security for existing improvements, we will, as we typically have with large-scale developments, request a roadway bond and enforce any weight limits for trucks moving off-site as well. So that entails the subdivision improvement agreement. The SSA, as Commissioner Olson read all of those, hopefully we'll have another one next year, which really talks about the establishment of an SSA for the maintenance of stormwater improvements. Primarily, it deals with the basin here in the southeast corner of the property. Again, the homeowners association will be responsible for all the maintenance of the basin and associated piping with stormwater. Should they fail to maintain those, the village can come in and enact the dormant SSA as proposed. So if there are any questions, we're here to answer those, and additionally, the developer is here as well to answer any questions about the development that you may have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Popovich. And unless the developer wants to make any comments at this point in time, no obligation. I'll open it up for public comment. Obviously, this is a workshop, so it's not necessarily limited. We can have a conversation on the topic, so there'll be opportunities to step up. I just want to at least extend the invitation if there was a desire to say something at this point in time. Again, no obligation. Seeing none, we'll open it up to the public for questions or comments. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is John Schofield. I think I know all of you. Mr. Mayor, may I just request perhaps a minute or two longer than 5? I have some general remarks and also some personal remarks.
Since you asked nicely, yes.
Thank you, sir. My name is John Schofield. I live at 1125 Jefferson, which is near the middle of Jefferson Avenue on the diagram. I've lived here for 20 years. I'm a property owner, I'm a taxpayer, and I'm a voter. I maintain the website nelsonmeadow.com, which has 10 years of documents pertaining to this project. The first thing I'd like to do is to compliment the new developer and his attorney. It has been a world of difference from our previous experience. They've been accessible and they've been responsive. I'll give you 3 examples, ones that have already been mentioned. When they discovered the request by the Village Council in 2006 to relocate that water main, the one that showed in that blue line there, within days, they had their engineer do that, very responsibly. Second of all, when they learned of the history of the discussion of the location of the pond vis-a-vis the black walnut trees that were remaining, they responded quite rapidly. Although it took the engineer a while to get all that done, it got done, and it got done, I think, quite satisfactorily. And then finally, when it became apparent at the neighborhood meeting with the developer just recently, within the last 2 weeks, that no one had included the Jefferson Avenue South curb and gutter, which is in very bad repair, within that week. I had a message back from the attorney that the village and the attorney had agreed to fix that problem and to include the South Jefferson Avenue curb and gutter in the project. So in terms of responsiveness, both in terms of listening and in terms of getting good results, I'm really quite impressed with what has happened. And as such, I look forward to a very different experience in terms of how we go through the details of the implementation than I would have feared 8 years ago. So that is all to the good. In addition to that, I am not an engineer, but my unprofessional layman's view of the stormwater engineering is that it is more robust than we had before. There used to be one single pipe carrying water all the way from Brookbank Road all the way east to the pond. One point of failure, I felt like we would get wet if a raccoon died in that pipe. We now have 2 east-west pipes separated by some distance. And so just in terms of looking at it as a layman, that redundancy gives me some more confidence that this is going to work. And so I just wanted to start out with those compliments because they're strongly felt, and I think it suggests we're in for a much better time going forward. So let me just summarize briefly our situation. I think you all know this. We currently live on a 15-foot wide street. It's gravel shoulder on the north. Hard fought for, it turns out, gravel shoulder on the north. We're landlocked, and we're soon to be fenced in. Regardless of how it might be drawn, we're going to be facing a fence when we get done. There's 6 of us in this circumstance. We're also going to be blocked from east-west and north-south access during the construction by fences. We also are bound in by St. Joseph Creek to the south. So we are very much at the mercy of this project. We're downhill from the project. So if in the wet stages of April there is flooding and the temporary earthworks don't work as planned, we will get wet. If there are mudslides, we will get them on our street, possibly on our front lawns, who knows how far. So in both cases, this requires careful attention, planning, and enforcement. Similarly, resident access can be a problem. If we've got all this work going on, there will be at least 8 cuts across the street for stormwater and water. It's going to take that same careful attention and planning and enforcement to provide the access that we as residents deserve. The most severe impact will be during the 104 days scheduled build-out of the infrastructure. After that, as the individual 10 houses are built, I think it will be more or less normal life in a development area once we get over that 104 days. Okay. Now, I'd like to shift and talk personally, not about the whole project or the history of it, but about my personal situation, my personal health and safety. I'm a 70-year-old senior citizen. I'll be 71 by the time this gets built. I am not in the best of health. And I'm concerned about my personal safety. And so I'm going to list 6 things that I would like to see incorporated into the subdivision improvement agreement. 6 things which are not at any cost to the village and probably not of much cost to the developer, but which will make me feel more comfortable that my health and safety will be respected during those 103 days of the build-out. There's already precedent for having particularized, neighbor-centric language in the subdivision improvement agreement. It's about 1117 Jefferson Avenue. And I'd like to see another paragraph or so added to address my concerns and those of my neighbors. First one is emergency vehicles. I mentioned this, some of you earlier. I would like assurance, and I'd like to see insurance in the subdivision improvement agreement where it won't get lost, that ambulances and fire trucks can get down my street 24/7. Simple request. I think a resident deserves that. Secondly, I'm concerned about air pollution. We'll have hundreds, 700, I think, diesel truckloads of soil hauled off-site over the course of several weeks, and the dust that's kicked up by those, even with the best watering of the earth. And so I have 2 requests with respect to air pollution. The first is that the village prohibit idling of diesel trucks. That's the village's policy with respect to its own trucks, and I think it should be the policy of the village with respect to this project. And if you put that in the subdivision improvement agreement where it won't get lost, I think we have some chance that it will be enforced. And secondly, with respect to pollution, I've been told by the village that the village has no equipment to measure air pollution. So we won't know whether the levels of dust and diesel fumes are dangerous or not. And I would request that the developer or the contractor, whoever is doing all this noxious work, and I mean that not in a pejorative sense, it is noxious work, that there will be appropriate air quality measurement instrumentation available to separate the true and the false complaints. I think you know, many of you know that I've spent a fair amount of time in Beijing, and Beijing is pretty notorious for bad air. And the U.S. Embassy actually publishes a bad air index every couple hours in Beijing with a green, yellow, red, awful purple scale to it. And I'd like to see the village be able at least to measure the detrimental, unhealthful combination of diesel exhaust and dust that will be drifting down the hill toward me. Fourth, there's a provision in the subdivision improvement agreement to notice us when our water will be turned off. There's no such notice for any of the other utilities. And there's no imperative that the interruption be limited, that the developer take all possible means to make that interruption short. And again, I think that's something we as residents captive to this project deserve. Fifth, access to my garage. One of the sheets of the plans, which you have in front of you, sheet number 5, called Existing Conditions and Demolition Plan, contains the following legend. The contractor to maintain access to the homes on the south side of Jefferson Avenue and the east side of Carpenter Street at all times. Would you please copy that into the stormwater improvement agreement and get it signed? And then finally, we know that despite that, there will be times when we can't get to our garages. They're going to replace our curb and gutter on the south side, so that's going to be an interruption where we can't get to our garages. The developer kindly made an offer to solve that problem by providing close-by parking for us, which I'm comfortable with. I mean, it may be uneven ground, but it's a short distance. Again, this language is in the attorney for the developer's memo to the village manager about the neighborhood meeting. And it says, temporary parking would be provided for an accessible cul-de-sac into the subdivision as a parking area for Jefferson residents. So again, would you please put that into the subdivision improvement agreement and get it signed? Okay, that's me. That's my personal concerns for my health and safety. I'd like to just mention very quickly 6 other items that are more broadly applicable to the neighborhood. As I said, there's language in the subdivision improvement agreement protecting and notifying the owners of 1117 Jefferson about interruption to his driveway. But in fact, all 6 driveways are going to be impacted by this, 3 of them substantially. I'd like that language in the subdivision improvement agreement extended to cover all 6 homes on Jefferson Avenue, not just the one. Next, there was confusion in my mind based on language in the subdivision improvement agreement that the developer would be plowing our street and not the village until public improvements were accepted. I think that's just a drafting flaw, and I would appreciate it being corrected to say that the village will continue to plow Jefferson Avenue. And then, once we've established that this is a regular street and not part of the build-out, I'd like to be sure that we get the pavement lift to final condition in the same sort of timely manner that any other village street project is continued. That is to say, as practical as possible, as quick as possible after the street work is begun, so that we will have a finished street rather than a roughed-in street for the 2 years that this project may run on. And then just 3 more. We'd like to have some clarification about whether we're going to lose the parking on the north side of Jefferson Avenue that we fought so hard for during this 2-day period. We'd like the north-south pedestrian access restored as soon as possible. As soon as that gets built out, there really isn't any reason not to move the fence and open that again. And I'd be perfectly happy if it was only open to pedestrian traffic and not to automobile traffic. And also move the fence and restore east-west pedestrian access as soon as possible. I said that I maintain this website, and the village clerk can already find my remarks on that website if you need a paper copy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schofield. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Good evening, sir.
How y'all doing?
Splendid, thank you. How are you?
Good, I'm the one, 1117 Jefferson.
Nice to meet you.
Well, I'm here. You can answer this question. The first thing, the construction fence. There's a walkway on the south perimeter that all the kids use. A lot of people just walk through. And if they don't walk, if it's a construction fence is all the way there blocking that off, they'll walk in my neighbor's behind me yard and then my yard. And we have electric fence so the dog doesn't get outside of that, but he'll be out in the yard a lot. And people are going to walk through there no matter what if the construction fence is all the way to the perimeter of the development. So that's something these guys can answer later on. I was hoping they can maybe leave a 2-foot path open or a 3-foot path open so the kids cutting through there, they're on Hillcrest and everything, they'll be able to still cut through, and my little dog won't be snapping at them. So and I just have just a little, basically the way I perceive this, it's kind of like a contract, this subdivision improvement agreement. It's almost like a contract that the village has with the builder and us. Is that kind of a good assessment of what that is all about?
Fair description.
Okay, so that's why I just kind of want to nitpick on the little things. First, they're talking about, you guys will be planting, there's a $17,000 allowance for 34 trees. That's what's in here, is that correct? And the village is taking on the role of planting them in. And there's 2 other trees they're killing, they're gonna be knocking down on Carpenter. Well, we'll be getting another $1,000 for those trees, $500 a tree to be planted back in, I'm curious. And I'd just like to know, I'd like it to be said that this $17,000 or $18,000 is solely spent in this place. You might be able to get 34 or 36 trees up there for 12. Well, if that's the case, let's put more trees in there. I mean, this money is for this development, so let's make sure maybe it's all spent there. All right. Then in the subdivision agreement on 17B, that's me, 1117 Jefferson. Come by anytime.
You have to turn your fence off first.
Pardon? No, you don't wear a collar, do you? This is just a little thing. It says that, that my driveway will be constructed with similar materials as currently in place at the location. I'd like the wording to maybe say that it will be constructed with same materials, with the same design in place in the location. I have a concrete driveway with a California configuration design. I want that to be specific in there so they just don't put something down in there that they want. And then on the, and then following on the page, they say that all necessary parkway restoration shall be completed within 2 weeks, weather permitting. 2 weeks from when? I'd like that maybe to be more descriptive. Then I have a question. I was talking to, they're kind of a neighbor company, Lamonte. They do construction work around here. So there's maintenance of new concrete when you pour. You should be, since it's going up in June now, you should be watering it just maybe twice a day for at least a week. And with water costs just soaring in this village, should that be my cost to bear or should that be the developer's cost to bear? The maintenance of the new concrete. I'm getting a whole new apron and a continuation of my driveway. So who's going to maintain that once it's put in place? For the first at least week, when at least that first week it needs watering and needs taken care of. And then they have 5 days to redo my driveway, and then the curing time for the concrete before I can drive over will be another 5 days. And it's 5 working days to do my driveway. So that's a total of 12 days before the end of the weekend. Where am I going to go anywhere? I have, depending upon who's home, I have anywhere from 2 to 6 cars in my lot. So I'm just wondering where I'm going to be putting those cars during those 12 days. Plus with the parkway also, when they're putting the parkway in, there's going to be the maintenance of the sod too. More watering I'm going to have to do. So, I mean, there's got to be some kind of period when they put this, whatever they put in. Who's going to maintain that for at least the first initial growth spurt? Is that my responsibility or is that the builder's responsibility? You know what? Also here, I got these little things for you guys. Just real quick. Exhibit B, the final engineering plan you guys have. You depict my driveways being asphalt, concrete. I like that change so I don't get asphalt matching my concrete. Okay. And then on a more personal note on the lighting plan, I have 3 girls and they're always texting and talking. I wonder if they can move the street light a little bit away from the driveway. Just so maybe someone doesn't hit it. I mean, if you look on the second page, this new street light, I have it circled there in red. It's like it's going to be right by my driveway. And if they can maybe just move that a little bit, it'd be appreciated. And one last question.
I'm sure they're not texting while they're driving.
Beg pardon?
I'm sure they're not texting while they're driving.
Well, you guys have all been there. That tree right behind my driveway?
I've seen it.
Oh my gosh, that thing is busted. That thing is busted about 5 windows. Neighbors, I did it once, oh my God, did I get yelled at for that? And don't have your music on when you're backing up my driveway. And so that's why I'm kind of maybe the street light could be moved a little bit. And as legality, I'm pretty sure, I'm just taxed on my plat of survey, right? My lot will be growing, but that won't affect my taxes, or it won't also affect the amount I'm being charged for water, because my lot's going to be perceived as being bigger. But are you just taxed on your plat?
Just on your property.
Yeah, just on my property. So the fact that it's bigger now, that won't affect my property taxes nor my water assessment,
Your stormwater.
my stormwater fee.
It should, if your parcel isn't changing.
No, it's just gonna be, it's gonna look bigger. I'm gonna bore the shovel.
It shouldn't change.
Shouldn't or won't?
Won't.
Okay, there we go. Got that on tape.
Not unless you legally add it to the rest of your parcel.
Pardon?
Not unless you legally add it to the rest of your parcel.
No, there's nowhere to go. And I would just remember, I'd like to thank John, you guys all know, him. He's been a stalwart behind us doing all this, and I know you all know him well, and just glad he's part of our team. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this project? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. John Spreet, 1209 Jefferson. I've issued emails with 3 topics. The third topic, the construction access on Carpenter Street, I think has been pretty well addressed. I'm sure some of the neighbors there might be concerned about 700 truckloads of dirt and mud and the staging and however many trucks that's going to be. So that still needs to be probably addressed in more detail. My main topic is the sanitary sewers. 4 of the properties will be tying into the existing sewer service on Jefferson on the 12 and 1300 block going down to Mid-Up. Those sewers are over 60 years old. We had a blockage in 2005. I had an opportunity to watch the sewer camera running through that sewer after they cleaned it out. All I can call it is a roller coaster. 3-foot lengths of clay tile. I'm surprised anything gets through it. Sanitary district seems to feel that that's normal for a 60-year-old sewer. But I can see the 4 properties on top of a hill with a couple of diapers will probably flow really well down until they get to the old sewers. So I am concerned about blockages on that. There may be a break in those, in the easement on, I think it's 1214 Jefferson. I think it's been reported, but nothing's been done with that yet. So there is some concern, and we'd like to get that addressed one way or another, because I haven't heard anything other than just a response from the sanitary district that should be fine. Fine doesn't help when you get blockages. The other issue is the stormwater issue. We've had 300-year floods in the last 15 years we've been here. Jefferson Avenue has been flooded, as well as our backyards flooded, a third of our properties. It gets worse every year. We call it the swamp behind the 1100 block of Jefferson. The village-owned property that's not maintained. Neighbors have maintained it on and off over the years, but it's gotten so overgrown that nobody can get through there anymore. It's water just backs up. Much more than an inch of rain now backs up into our properties, and getting worse year to year. So we would like to see the village address that. The new detention pond here should help at least with the flow, but it's still going to be entering, the creek right on the west side of Carpenter Street, I believe, which could still back up into the swamp more. This year, I don't think the swamp has dried out at all. I think it's been wet all year. And again, getting worse year to year. And the creek before it, where our property is probably at least a foot higher, which is sediment, debris, garbage, bags, you name it, just building up in it year to year. Like I said, we just can't get through it anymore. So we would like to see the village at least clean up the swamp, at least make a pathway or flow for water through there. And I don't think the village has ever been in to maintain that. It's mostly neighbors that have been doing it. Now Jefferson Avenue storm sewers also flow into that. So any backup or blockage there backs the water up on Jefferson Avenue in front of our houses. So any help we can get would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Doesn't look like there are any more at this point in time. I'll open it up for questions or comments from members of the council. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to...
Answer the question.
Oh, I see. Well, maybe introduce yourself.
Yeah, for the record, let me introduce myself. My name is David Sossin, S-O-S-I-N. I'm the attorney for the developer. With me is one of the principals in the development company, Patrick France, who's seated next to me, and Bill Cusson from Robinson Engineering, who's the engineer who did these plans. We're here to certainly listen, as we have been, to not only your staff, but also the neighbors, and I'm happy to address some of these questions that have been asked, as well as any concerns or questions you may have relating to the items that are brought up and any other items. So, any way you want to proceed, Mayor, I'm happy to do it. Do you want me to respond to those first, or I
Let me
can't?
ask my colleagues. I was going to ask what my colleagues' questions were, and then we'd have a full list, but if anyone wants to hear your response to what, the at least 12 items that I wrote down.
Yeah, I get that. Okay.
Yeah, my questions were how we were going to address them, so.
Okay. Right, the first major issue in an infill site such as this would always be stormwater. And we have worked with the village engineers and our engineers and made a number of changes, including losing an entire lot and increasing the detention area. The developer's budget will earmark almost $600,000 to stormwater management that doesn't exist right now on this property. Major cost is removal of 13,600 cubic yards of dirt. Certainly, that's a lot of trucks going in and out, and it's a lot of loading, but once it's over, that site will be brought down to grade. There will be a performing detention area with restrictor pipes, and the whole situation in that area will change. Right now, all the water's running from a very high site, undetained, any way it wants to go, no silt fences, no detention area, no grass, no pipes, and the outflow is actually not on Jefferson, but it's actually to the east, toward Carpenter. So we feel confident that we will fulfill our obligation to the newest standard in the county with regard to detention. The second area that has been mentioned is the storm sewer, and we've looked at that situation. So did the sanitary district. And we feel that although the sewer is older, everybody agrees in the professional staff that it's performing, and we think our development's actually going to help it. One of the problems with that sewer, we've been advised, is the rate of flow, which it's not at anywhere near capacity. It's actually kind of low. Sometimes you need more velocity in a sewer, and our houses, which there aren't that many of them, but it's only going to help that situation. Certainly, maintenance is an issue in any sewer that the village has. Now, with regard to water, there are a couple of very important improvements that, besides relocating that water main, that main is going to be a substitute for the people on Jefferson. So they are going to hook into that main when we're done, and we're going to hook them into it at our expense and abandon the old water main. That will provide them with better water, better safety for example, fire hydrants. And at the request of the village, the developers also agreed to take the fittings that go from their Buffalo box into the new water main and replace them with new pipes. After the Buffalo box, that would be on the homeowner's responsibility. But putting those in when the water main goes in is a lot easier than replacing them 10 or 15 years from now, as they get older and older, and some of the houses have been there a while. So we've agreed to do that. So I think on the utility side, we've made major commitments to the stormwater, the water as well, and we're very happy about that. The other comments that are made, this agreement's been worked over pretty good, and if we miss something, I think many of the comments that have been made are items that we don't disagree with at all, but they're really more implementation and execution comments. providing construction the ability for emergency vehicles? Absolutely. Having trucks not sitting there any unnecessary period of time idling. Providing a replacement to the driveway that is concrete, covered not just in the implementation, but also in the engineering plans. There's a note on the engineering plan that says driveways will be replaced in kind, which is a very common thing to do. So if it's concrete, it's replaced with concrete, and if it's asphalt, it's replaced with asphalt. So we think a lot of these items are items that your staff is going to work with our subcontractors and our builder to work on these items and minimize the impact. Will there be dirt? Yes, but it gets cleaned up. Will there be dust? Yes. That's what water trucks are for. And one of the other comments that was made about the sod and watering, that's a developer responsibility. The sod is part of our replacement cost, and when it's laid down, you don't just leave, because if you do, you got to come back and replace it again. Watering is in our interest, and so is curing the concrete, because at some point in time, the village staff's going to inspect it, and if it hasn't cured properly, there's going to be a change. As far as the street and the parking, that is a sequencing issue, and the plan that has been explained that will be implemented with the village is to get the street on the west in first as quickly as possible, and to then work around and get that cul-de-sac in. When Jefferson is affected, we also will have the parking area. There won't be any houses there, but we'll have the cul-de-sac street, Nelson Court in, and there'll be an area for parking as part of that. The comment on fencing is an important one, and there really is no one fence plan. The fence plan starts out to be pretty much covering the site, not the south side of Jefferson, but the entire Nelson Meadows subdivision. And then, as that street goes in, and as the utilities go in, fencing gets moved, and eventually, the fencing is reduced to individual lots as the houses go up as required by ordinance. So we think that this is a good agreement. If there's something that the council feels that we as lawyers have missed or needs to go in there, not just in the implementation, we'll certainly continue to work with the village. What's most important, we believe, is after the subdivision is begun, that it get done properly, and it get done smoothly, and it get done safely, and minimize the inconvenience, because the neighbors can be our best friends or our worst enemies, and we've chosen at this point to work with them, and that's not going to change. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I appreciate that initial address. I will ask my colleagues if they have any questions or comments of you or in general. Commissioner Olson.
Well, I think this is not far from where I live, and so I thank my neighbors in this area for their advocacy and working so collaboratively with the developer, and thank the developer for being willing to work with the neighbors. This is, to me, I'm very pleased and heartened by the comments that have been made, the initial comments that John made about some of the things we've worked together, that the neighbors and the developer have worked together on. That's really, I think that's a model of how these type of developments should go. The main concern and that I have had in this project, and hearing about this project for some time, have been some of the long-term effects of the project, and I think those have been addressed. You look at something like the trees, the walnut trees, and there's provisions made to make sure that those trees are preserved. There's the stormwater detention, and we've made provisions to ensure that meets our code and is an effective detention. So, I'm very pleased with that. Obviously, these concerns that have been raised tonight on some of the specifics and implementation, I'd like those to be addressed, and so we can, so the neighbors feel some comfort with that, and whether that's best addressed, how that's best addressed, leave that up to professionals, but I think that it sounds that there's a lot of agreement amongst both the developer and the neighbors on those issues, and so if we can, just work together to make sure that there's comfort that both sides, feel comfortable with how we proceed, and then, go through an excellent plan, and I just wish that everybody the most success possible as this is implemented.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Neustadt?
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me, the fact that we even have a subdivision improvement agreement is a good step for everybody, not only the neighborhood, the neighbors, but also for the developer. It allows both sides, and the village, of course, to understand where everybody sits and the responsibilities that each has. Of the 6, and then another 6 issues that were brought up by the neighborhood today, I think a lot of these things we cover in our general enforcement, inspection, and processes as we go through our normal reconstruction and development activities. I don't know that I'd ever say this out loud again, but kind of wish Mr. Roble was here tonight and kind of go to the Queen's Court conversation of a couple years ago when that neighborhood was totally redone, down to the bare dirt, new streets, new curbs, new gutters, everything brought back up. We have time and time again done these type of big infrastructure improvement projects throughout the village. I'm certain that our staff will be on top of and address all the concerns that have been brought up tonight. I understand that there's a desire to get these into the subdivision improvement agreement. However, we just heard from the developer that they want to have the neighbors as their partners. And I think that it's important that they have already taken that step. Mr. Schofield himself said that, these guys have been working very well with the neighborhood, and I think that that's a great move for everybody. Some of the things that have been requested here would be hard to not then be carried through to every other project in town. The idling thing, I had 4 houses go up on my block this summer. Constantly a parking lot, constantly trucks up and down. I don't know that we can ever mandate idling or not idling of vehicles up and down. We try very hard with our own crews. The watering issue, I think we've heard about. The air pollution and quality, I think we will always work to have our guidelines followed in our construction site management code. With water trucks, emergency vehicles will always find a way to get to your house if needed. I go back to the blizzard where at some times we had snowmobiles, we had firefighters, paramedics walking. Yes, the time may be slowed. In this case, they won't be walking through 2 feet of snow. They'll get to your house in a timely manner. I think that the fact that we are even having this conversation is a benefit for this development. The fact that this development is going forward is a benefit for our entire community. 10 new homes will increase our EAV, will increase the property value and rate in this area. The infrastructure improvements will be fantastically new for the folks on Jefferson, a whole new court and roadway there in Brookbank. I'm looking forward to saying yes to this agreement. I think it's good. And from my perspective, to Mr. Schofield, Mr. Cronin, I think just having the public comment and the public conversation tonight puts everybody on the spot. Whether or not those have to be put into the agreement or not, I think the village, developer, and certainly this council are aware of your concerns and your desires, and we will work hard to make sure they're met. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Rankin.
I would like to compliment you all for really listening to the residents and trying to accommodate their concerns and being flexible with the agreement and the things that you agreed to. I think it's a better experience for these residents than they've had in the past.
I think it would have to be.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of good things about this. There's improved detention. I think the SSA is something we've been doing. In fact, I know the SSA is something we've been doing lately to protect these neighborhoods, and I think it's a good thing to do. The part about not issuing building permits until after the improvements are made. I understand a lot of the concern and worries that more has to be included in the subdivision improvement agreement, but Commissioner Jose and I were speaking beforehand, and a subdivision improvement agreement is not something that's with every new development in town. Is that right, Enza? Yes, that's correct. So it is something unique not necessarily unique to this area, but it's something that the developer is doing with the residents and the staff to make sure that all of these things are addressed. So I'm confident that our staff will work with the neighbors and that the developer will live up to their word and do the things that they've agreed to. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Durkin?
Yeah, just a couple things, not to be repetitive of what my peers have already said, but I compliment you for your, okay, just the one item. Just compliment you for your willingness to work with the residents, because as the history has shown, this has been an ongoing project, and there's been probably a lot of sleepless nights wondering what that hill is going to be in so many years down the road. So to have an end come within sight here is great. I do have a couple questions, and I do want to comment on a couple things that Mr. Schofield had said, because I actually lived through some of a small, much smaller scale of construction just past summer when they replaced the water main on Bonnie Brae, which we are extremely grateful for, because knock on wood, we haven't had a water main break yet, and hopefully we never will for the next 30-plus years. When it comes to removing those yards of dirt, thousands of yards of dirt, I really would like us to look at ways that we could work and make sure, especially at the start of the construction day, that those trucks are not sitting there idling. As a former construction worker, call me that, operator, I understand that at the beginning of the day, that's when you're going to have all your trucks there coming to get loaded and out, and it's going to break up throughout the day because of traffic and travel times. So I would ask if there's any way we could do that, because when they did the water main on our street, the times that we had the trucks idling was at 6 a.m. in the morning until the operators could start at 7. So there is going to be that time period of the trucks idling. If we could just look at that, I would ask that we do. The air quality, I think that's a great concept, idea. We do know that international cities are looking at that. I don't really know if that's something that we would have to do. I've had sidebar conversations with Mr. Schofield, but if we could at least look at that to see if something of this magnitude would warrant that, I think would be appreciative not only to he, but also to the rest of the community, and then we could learn from it as a whole. The communications, I think, is going to be extremely important here. I think whenever you're going to shut off water, shut off electricity, whatever you're going to do that's going to implement the lifestyle or affect the lifestyle of the residents in that general area, I think you've got to communicate that to the best of your ability. Even if it's, 7 o'clock at night and it's going to happen at 7 o'clock in the morning, at least you gave it your best effort to get that communication out. Because I know that was one of the things that was very beneficial in our area, because we've implemented these new procedures on communications, and it was well received. The one item that I would like some information on, and I don't know if we need it now or actually I don't need it now, if we could have it later on. The west side, there's a path that has been spoken about so much. That is a path to the school and home from the schools. What is the schedule of having that sidewalk installed and open for people to use? Or will it be done at a later point, and then the construction fence going to be butting up to the west? Or it's not there.
Which street?
I think it's Brookbank.
Brookbank?
Connecting to Jefferson.
I know that's early, that Brookbank's early in the process, but Mr. Cusson is here. Let me ask him, because he's designed...
I don't need an answer right now.
Okay.
If we could just get some kind of timetable,
Yeah.
especially with light of the fact that that's actually a walking area.
Just to confirm, you're talking about the north-south axis along...
North-south axis on the west side of the property, which is now a path, a well-worn path.
Yeah,
And I think our village staff even put down gravel, crushed rock.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's going to be early in the process. That
My
whole
only
street.
concern is that it's done early in the process and it's open so pedestrians can use it.
Yes.
And other than that, I welcome you to town. I hope you sell all
Thank you.
10 homes.
10.
And you're in and out within a record time, so life can get back.
That would be good for everybody.
And the economy.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Since we were talking about the west side,
Thank you.
just came up with it. Was thinking about the tree, there's some, I know there was some discussion about the trees on the west side. There's currently, there's a number of trees that are in the middle of where the road's gonna go, so those have to be removed. Are any of the trees in that area that are currently existing on the property going to be preserved along Brookbank on the west side of the property? Or would that all have to be replaced, all those trees have to be replaced?
Virtually all of them, there are quite a number of them. They're actually all in the right-of-way, and they're not high-quality trees. That the forester for the village has identified not only what trees have value, but also what the replacement requirements are based on where those trees are and their quality under the ordinance. So, but they'll be going out all the way to the property line of the adjoining owners who back up to Brookbank.
And I think, with these trees, there was the point that Mr. Cronin raised regarding more of the village issue is, the village is getting compensation for some of these trees. And he mentioned this piece of the money that is received from the developer in compensation for the trees on the property be used for trees on this site. I think that I strongly agree with that from a perspective of, I know this has been a concern in this neighborhood, and to make sure that that we'll have some funding right there to ensure that we have trees for well into the future in this neighborhood.
Yes, all of it will be invested back into the rights of way in this development.
Thank you.
That's really up to us anyway. With the money, we pretty much decided to do it.
Right.
That's not the developers.
Right, it's not the developer's issue.
Right, well, I think the point, though, is that we don't necessarily pick where each and every tree is planted. That happens a little further down the food chain, and we'd like, at least I understood Commissioner Olson to say that he would like them planted in this particular neighborhood. I'd like to echo that as well.
You haven't submitted your list of trees and where they're going?
I've not yet.
Those were due on Friday.
The dog ate it.
I haven't submitted it either, but I'll support it, because I think it's...
All the trees will be planted.
I think that's everyone's direction.
Okay.
That would happen.
Good.
In lieu of payments would be put back into trees for that actual neighborhood.
Probably like 34 of them, be my guess.
Something like that.
I want 48. Jimmy Johnson.
You can bring that up under new business. Other questions or comments? Very quickly, just from my perspective, I did listen very carefully and write down the 12 items, some of which I combined because they were on similar topics. We did get this response from the sanitary district with respect to the issue that was raised by the one gentleman regarding the sanitary sewer. The issue about the swamp we'll set off to the side for the time being. That's for another conversation. Emergency access, and so let me back up a minute. I mean, some of these things have to do with whether what's really going to get done is really going to get done. And at the end of the day, we're required to enforce that no matter what. So whether we're enforcing our village code or we're enforcing something that's written into a contract, at the end of the day, the village is still responsible for enforcing it. So whether it's in the agreement or it's in the code, at the end of the day, you're going to have to rely upon the village to enforce it either way. A lot of these issues are touched upon in the village code, and I think I agree with my colleagues that this is not our first rodeo. We've had a lot of different developments, a lot of different areas, particularly since this project was originally approved way back when. And I think that, I think that the relationship has improved a lot with respect to this project, but I also think that our experience in handling these projects has also improved a great deal in making sure that a lot of these different concerns are addressed using the code that we already have in place. I mean, for example, ensuring that there's access for emergency vehicles, that would be true no matter where we were in the village. If someone were blocking emergency access on Bonnie Bray, I guarantee that there'd be a call to go enforce that. So that's an issue that's already in our code and something that we would enforce. And I don't think it's necessary to put it into an agreement because it's belt and suspenders. The parking with respect to during construction, obviously that's an important issue. I've heard and I've seen what's in the agreement in terms of parking will have to be provided. It is, in my opinion, an implementation issue. It is clearly the intention of the residents, the developer, and the village to make sure that during those periods of time that those on Jefferson Avenue are going to be inconvenienced by not being able to get into their driveways, that there will have to be a place for them to put their cars. We all want to make that work out, and I think that it's probably something that's best left to implementation in the field, because we're going to have to see how things actually work out. We can try to design it the best we can right now, but I think there does need to be some flexibility, and we have to be able to allow village staff to do what they see fit is in the best interest of the residents as time passes. But clearly, we all understand that folks have to be able to park their cars somewhere. The one thing that was in the agreement that I do question as to why we're giving notice to just one person of not being able to get in the driveway instead of the whole block. It would seem to be just as easy to tell everybody, and probably a good idea, and consistent with the expressed intention of the developer already, working with the neighbors. I don't see why we couldn't just extend it to everybody in the block, right? The 6 houses rather than just the one house. Water cutoff notice would be the same thing. Whenever water gets cut off, everyone gives notice as best they can. But that, again, is something I want to make a point of is true anywhere in the village, and not just this project, but anywhere there's a project and water gets cut off. We have to work with the developer or whoever it is that's doing work in the street that may cause a temporary disconnection of water service. And the village always does the best we can to work with those contractors wherever they are working to try to give as much notice as possible, as folks understand that their water's not going to be off between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. in the morning when they're trying to get about their day. Or if it is, that they know about that well in advance. But things happen. We do the best we can. Some of these other issues, like the walking path, we've already covered spending the money on the trees. That's clearly something which was in the village's control, and the direction has been made pretty clear there. The walking path, I get, and I'm not talking about what Commissioner Durkin was talking about, the north-south axis. I'm talking about what was, at one point in time, the wood chip path. That can no longer be done because it's not ADA compliant. And the issue with the construction fence there at the time, I had that same issue in my mind, but then it was made clear to me that the reason why there's a construction fence is you don't want people walking anywhere near this project. So I would hesitate to invite people to walk through a construction zone. I don't want to invite them to walk through your electrified fence either, but the idea is not to encourage people to walk towards the project, but away from the project for obvious reasons. So that one I'm a little bit not so sure about that one. I think I do agree that we should actually deter foot traffic from around a major construction site, not towards it. In terms of the idling of trucks and air quality, clearly we have a nuisance ordinance that can be utilized to deal with issues as they arise. And we have a section, I think it's still section 13.37 of our village code regarding air pollution being prohibited. So the code says what it says, but we don't go running around measuring air quality throughout the village. We couldn't, I don't know how we would enforce that even if we tried. It's really dealt with as part of the nuisance ordinance. And if things are difficult, we would take action. There have been other situations, I know Commissioner Barnett can tell a few stories, where there have been issues around other sites in town that have caused a nuisance either through disruption, noise, particulate matter, or whatnot. So we have experience with dealing with those situations when they arise. My fear is that we start trying to say that there will be measurements taken at certain hours of the day. It becomes an enforcement nightmare, and it is not something we're doing anywhere else in the community. And I am mindful of Commissioner Rankin's comment, which is because of the subdivision control agreement, there are substantially more restrictions and requirements here than are afforded a lot of other projects in the community. I don't think Commissioner Newstead got that with the 4 houses that were built on his block or in other parts of town. I'm not saying be lucky you have this. I'm just simply saying that I think that where you're starting is already that much farther ahead of a lot of other situations in town. The idling trucks, I do understand that issue because that's an exhaust topic, but I think having somebody stand there with a stopwatch, the trucks is just an invitation for a disaster of enforcement issues. I think we're going to have to best deal with these things like we do in other contexts throughout the village, and that is through our nuisance ordinance. I do want to again repeat that whether it's in the agreement or whether it's through our ordinance, ultimately the enforcement obligation falls upon the village anyway. So in some respect, it is a trust us either way. And I'm confident, as my colleagues have mentioned, that as in other sizable projects that have taken place over the last 5-10 years, that while there will be bumps in the road, no pun intended, these things are big projects, I'm pretty confident that overall, things will be well-managed and through the ordinary oversight function of the village. And I do appreciate all the interaction and engagement between the developers, representatives, the representatives of the neighborhood, and village staff to bring it to this point. I think those comments that Mr. Schofield shared at the very beginning about the collaborative environment being much better than what it was before are well taken and appreciated. Obviously, we're not voting on this tonight, and there's still opportunities for other questions to be answered that were raised. Are there any other questions or comments from the council?
Thank you for the extraordinary amount of time.
I'm sorry, I just want to see if there's any, based on the discussion, any not final, but any further questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Because as long as you're there, you might as well want to make you get up again. Hearing none, please.
Thank you. We've spent a lot of time with your staff, and we will again, and I'm sure the conversation with the neighbors is just beginning, because obviously the implementation is just as important as the planning. We just hope we have a good spring. That's not like last year. But we'll continue to work, and the other thing, that, and just in closing, I want to mention is that not only do we have subdivision agreement, we have 24 pages of private covenants that will affect the subdivision, that will regulate the people who buy these houses to make sure that after we're gone, that there are severe restrictions on quality, on assessments, on governance, and in that document, we've also provided a mechanism so that they have notice that there is a special service area here, and they're well aware that that if things are not maintained properly, especially the detention pond, because that's the key, that there are ramifications. So we're happy to do that, and it's just part of responsible development. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you for being here and answering all the questions. And obviously, as I said, we won't be voting on this tonight, so there'll be an opportunity for further engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
That was item 9A.
And B, we did cover the special service area of
Yes,
Nelson Meadow. The second topic is actually items C and D, and this topic concerns the new Art Van Furniture Store on Butterfield Drive, and Stan will also present this item.
Welcome back.
Good evening, Mayor and Council again. I'm here to present, let me get to the right slide here, a plan development amendment to plan development number 4 and a first amendment to an economic incentive agreement with Art Van at 1021 Butterfield Road. Art Van is located in the northern edge of Downers Grove, just off of I-88, just west of Highland Avenue and off of Frontage Road. This is an area map showing where the development is taking place. A little close-up view here in the yellow or mustard color shows the site at 1021 Butterfield Road where Art Van is going to be located. This zooms in a little bit more to the proposed development at Art Van that they're moving in. They're renovating the building, currently undertaking some exterior demolition on the site. The Art Van is proposing to a significant remodeling of both the exterior and the interior of the site, some new facades, a new interior layout for the old Home Expo Center. It's going to be the Art Van flagship store here in the Chicagoland area. As such, they're requesting a plan development amendment to provide additional sign and an increase in sign allowances that deviate from the sign ordinance in 3 ways. The first way is they're requesting 990 square feet of total signage where 300 square feet is allowed. In addition to, there's an allowance for a 225 square foot monument sign on the tollway. They are not taking advantage of that. They would prefer to have all their signage on the building. The second one is a sign on the east facade where one is not permitted, which is on this facade here. This is the PGA Tour store here. And then the second request is to have 2 signs on the north facade, the west facade, and the south facade facing the I-88 tollway here. Staff believes that each of these are very important to the store and to the success of the Art Van location here. First off, I'd like to talk about the north elevation. In the upper left-hand corner, we have the existing floor plan that shows on the north side here, the existing building and then the proposed elevation. So you'll see they have 2 signs here, the big Art Van red box, and then there's a Pure Sleep sign here at lower the mattress store. Typically, they're requesting multiple signs on multiple frontages because in addition to having RV and furniture, there's a Pure Sleep mattress store, and then there's a Scott Shuptrine Interiors as well. So there's really one main business and a couple of ancillary businesses within the overall building. This is looking at the west elevation here, the existing and then the proposed. Again, we've got the Art Van letters here at the, that'd be, I guess, the northwest corner of the property. And then it's a little hard to see in this picture, but the Scott Shuptrine, I apologize if I keep messing up that name, here above this entrance here. This will be a secondary entrance, almost a primary entrance for that interior section of their development. And then on the south side facing the tollway, again, we have two signs, the large Art Van red box, and then the Pure Sleep as well. And then on the east side, which is a little hard to take a picture of, but the Art Van furniture, which is shown here, will be in essence on this facade that sort of juts up. The petitioner felt this was a very important sign to direct people coming off of the I-88 tollway off of Highland Avenue to be able to see the store location, to be able to get back there. We believe it's a complex building and a complex location, just based along the frontage road, but really having a Butterfield Road address. The request that is really based on three factors that we find supporting the request, which is it's a flagship location for Art Van with two ancillary businesses within the development. They need adequate signage each of those properties, each of those businesses. There's no direct access to Butterfield Road. Everything's off of the frontage road, either Downers Drive to the west or Highland to the east. They are not requesting a monument sign along Butterfield Road. The existing structure that's there will be coming down. All 990 square feet of signage is proposed for the building itself. And then additionally, they are allowed a tollway monument sign, which is 225 square feet, but they're foregoing that to have all the signage on the building itself. With regard to the comprehensive plan goals, it does meet the comprehensive plan goals in terms of big box development along the corridor, reinvestment in these regional corridors such as Butterfield Road, attraction of new retailers in the village. This is really a flagship store for Downers Grove. We're very proud that we've gotten them here. And then they do need maximum visibility, and we believe the 990 square feet of signage does meet that requirement. As such, the staff finds that those standards for a plan development amendment have been met, and we are very positive on the sign package that they've permitted. It's really in good scale with the building that's there and proposed. And we're very excited about the design of the building itself as well, if I could say that. With regard to the economic incentive agreement, this is our first amendment. There are two changes, really. The first is the removal of the business improvement district that Art Van had originally requested back in 2013. They no longer desire that business improvement district, so we're okay with removing that from the economic incentive agreement. And then the second one is a revision on the project completion date. The original one was March 1st of next year, and obviously they need a little bit more time, so we've amended that to December 31st of 2015. Art Van does have a demolition permit, so as you'll see in my pictures, and if you're out there, there's a fence around the site. They're starting to do some exterior work. They're in for permit, for a shell and core permit, and additionally for an interior build-out permit. So we're very confident that this December date will be able to be met. We also have Mike Rupert here with me, and then John Wyatt with Art Van as well, if you have any questions for them. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience on either items 9, C, and D, which is the amended plan development agreement, or the amendment to the incentive agreement? Any questions from the audience? Please.
Hi, Neil Summers. What's the total dollar amount that is involved in this economic incentive agreement?
You mean the underlying one? Because this just simply changes the date.
The underlying, whatever's still out there.
Ask the village manager to remind us.
We'll look it up on the website here real quick. We'll have an answer for you shortly.
We'll take a pause.
Yeah, I guess it's just, this is my first village council meeting, so it's interesting to come here to defend non-for-profits, paying a tax and looking for an 8%, where are we gonna get this money? And then next on an agenda, I see a big company coming to Downers, and they're looking for an economic incentive to do business. And it's interesting that these two things are happening on the same night, so I'm just interested to see how much money it is that we're gonna incentivize them for
Sure.
coming to Downers.
Usually the incentive is through waiving of fees and things of that nature.
Which is how much about?
Well, that's what we'll look up in a moment, but keep in mind, this site's been empty for a number of years and not producing any revenue that helps to actually keep your taxes.
Yeah, but I mean, as a taxpayer, I mean, it kind of just gets into the debate, right? Of, you know, where does the money get spent? Who gets an incentive? You know, I mean, there's three representatives to a company
Well,
here.
One thing that's very simply put in economic settlement agreements, and you're right, so they have to make sense. They have to make sense, but the one thing to keep in mind is 50% of something is a lot better than 100% of nothing.
Yeah, but it's funny to me that I come here and a big company, who you just heard the tax thing for the churches, and you're asking for an incentive to do business. And as a businessman myself, I mean, that takes a lot of guts, you know? It's just an interesting conversation.
Well, it actually has nothing to do with them. This is an agreement that we entered into
Last year.
last year.
Okay, but still, it's dollars.
No, it
I
might
mean,
be-
we could
it might be
slice
good-
You could slice and dice any way you want.
Might be good, Neil, to listen to what the mayor said when he said 50% of something. Most of the villages, you ready? Most of the villages' economic incentive agreements are based on future sales, most of them.
Yeah, sure.
And what that means is, to you as a taxpayer, because you're concerned with that, as are all of the taxpayers up here, is that when we take an empty business or an empty car dealer, and we convert it to a sales tax and taxable property that's flourishing, that generates...
Well, that's yet to be debated. I mean,
Ready?
it flourish if
Ready?
you can or not.
Can you let me finish?
Sir, let him finish, because what he's
It
gonna tell you-
generates additional revenue beyond what might otherwise not have been there. When you look at, one of the things you heard tonight was your levy for the Village of Downers Grove. It might interest you to know, as a property taxpayer, that in Downers Grove, we levy approximately for $12 million of property taxes that goes directly to the operations of the village. The village takes about $44 million to run. This is the kind of place that other money comes from. Your property taxes might be roughly doubled if we were not the benefactors of state income tax redistribution, sales tax, and utility taxes.
No, I understand the theory.
So when you
Yeah.
stand there and say, I find it interesting, with
It
kind
is.
of a grin that there's, you know, a big company coming asking for money when you're asking for the churches, what they're asking for is, would we help them with their future revenues, foregoing some of them, in order to come here? Now, we could say no, say, nah, we don't like doing that, because churches are needing money. But then what would be the income generated for the village from that property?
Well, hey, maybe someone who really wants to take a chance, you know.
Why don't we actually get the answer to the question?
50% of the sales tax generated from this store for a period of 15 years. The amount is based on how well the store performs.
Okay, so what's a general sales?
Well, hold on, sir. Hold on a second. I don't think that's fair for you to do with them right there. They're not here for that. You're asking us about the incentive agreement. Not,
Okay.
they're here simply asking.
Well, the incentive agreement's 50% of 15.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Wow.
But if they're not there, what does it generate?
Oh, that's not the way to look at it, in my opinion. I mean, as a businessman, you go and you're asking for a 50% break on the sales
Hold on a
tax.
second.
I mean,
You're not even sure that they asked that. How do you not know?
Well, he just said it.
No, sir. Please,
Okay.
please. The site's been vacant and non-performing for a number of years, so the sales tax from that property has been zero.
Yeah, so
They
there's
are
many
general-
vacant
Hold on,
areas.
Please, sir, please. I've been very polite with you. Please let me finish. I realize this is your first meeting, but we generally try to let one another finish before the next person
Well,
speaks.
keep going, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The site is generating nothing. Okay?
I understand that
The
point.
incentive is coming from what they generate. So it's costing you nothing as a taxpayer.
Yeah, but do you understand the moral hazard that goes in giving a tax break 50% off of the sales tax? No or yes? Can you answer my question? Do
Certainly,
you
there's
understand
nothing
that?
moral about it. It's just good
Really?
economic sense because it's generating zero right now.
So is there any, did you put that on the market for any other business? Maybe someone would want only 25% off the sales tax.
There was no one else, sir.
Okay, well, maybe they don't know that agreement's out there.
That's not true. We have an economic development director that's sitting right to your left.
Okay.
You might want to introduce himself to yourself, Michael Cass, on the way out, who works very hard every day to actually get people to come to this property.
Yeah,
So we do know that.
Okay, so to put it in dollar terms.
So what the point is here is this is actually benefiting you as a taxpayer, and that's why we're having a hard time understanding why you're upset about it.
I'm upset about
We
it
could do
because.
nothing and it would not.
Because people are choosing winners and losers. You are, whoever made the decision.
Well,
To
sure.
say, yeah, well, you know what, for 15 years, I think we're gonna give 50% off of your sales tax. great deal. I mean, as a businessman myself, I mean, that's pretty amazing. That's a great deal.
Well, when the alternative
Congratulations,
is, when the
you know?
alternative is 100% of the sales tax goes to Lombard or Wheaton, where the store would have located.
Well, I mean,
if not
where does
for
it
this.
end, I guess?
This is a win-win for you as a taxpayer.
I understand that point.
Well, then I don't understand why you're
But
talking about
but that's kind of selfish though, too. It's just like, oh, well, since I'm gonna win in the long run, well, yeah, go ahead and disincentivize other businesses that maybe you might want to do it the right
There
way.
aren't. What is the right way?
The right way is to actually take a risk and not have the taxpayers, you know.
But the taxpayers aren't putting on a single nickel. That's what the
Okay,
fallacy in your statement.
you like, it's interesting to me how you slice and dice arguments, because are they not getting a benefit?
But their benefit is.
They are generating the monies. They are
What they
generating the
sell.
money from
Yeah,
which this is
exactly,
coming
what
from.
they sell, but they're saving 50%.
It's based off of sales.
50% less,
If
right?
they don't
You
So
know,
if
we
they
don't
sell a million,
understand what we voted for here.
I don't understand, what don't I understand about the agreement?
I said we understand what
Okay.
we voted on.
We think we understand your point. You're not in favor of deals where we take a vacant spot that's generating no sales tax and we actually generate revenue for the taxpayers.
I would reword it to say I'm not for special deals for a big company that
It's
wants to.
not a special deal, sir. It's got nothing to do with the big.
Who else has, well then, who else gets agreements like this?
Anyone who makes the case that it makes good economic sense for the village and for the taxpayers.
Yeah, okay. Well, very
If
interesting.
you have a proposal, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, no, I don't have a proposal for
Well,
this site.
there you go.
Yeah.
We usually address the people who ask us. So if you have a proposal, or any business that has a proposal, we listen to it. If
Was
it
there
makes
any,
sense-
there's no other proposals?
No, there wasn't, sir.
Okay, and so the whole point of a market-based solution, it's not, I mean, you didn't go out and say, hey, 50% off sales tax to anybody who wants to come to the site, or?
Basically, it's pretty well known through our economic development director what kind of incentives that we would be willing to offer a major company who locates their flagship store to our town.
Okay, yeah, so he's here to answer questions. What's the annual sales of a store like this?
I don't know if they want to answer a question of what some store in Michigan, I don't think that's what they're here for. It's not really a fair
The
question.
topic really was the.
Well, how can it
plan
not be a
unit
fair
development.
question?
The answer was in our green sheet from 2013. Art Van Furniture is expected to generate $150,000 in net annual sales tax revenue for the village. So $300,000 total, split half, 150.
So 15 years, that's $4.5 million incentive.
Capped at $3.2 million, carried at an interest rate of 1.25%, and the other mechanism for payment, an additional sales tax placed only on Art Van was requested by Art Van earlier and now dropped through this request here.
Right.
So the
reason why I
limit's
said-
3.2.
Right, the reason why I said it's an unfair question is that we actually voted on this a year ago. The only thing that's here tonight, they did not come here tonight to defend something that we agreed to a year ago.
Hey, that's fine.
They came
You
here
know, I
tonight for two
understand that.
things on this topic. One was to remove the business improvement district, which actually helps us.
I understand that
And the other
point.
thing is simply to change the completion date in the agreement from March 1st, 2015 to March 31st, 2015. That's why it's not a fair question.
I understand the point, and I'm kind of glad I can't come to every meeting. And believe me, I probably won't be at any meeting in the future, but it's just an interesting thing to see, and I appreciate all your time, and thanks. Have a good evening.
I'm just trying to provide a little context and information.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Good evening.
Hi, Marjorie, 4720 Florence Avenue. I just, in light of what we've just heard, want to thank Art Van and Michael Casa for such a great job of bringing Art Van to us and welcome them here. Glad you're bringing this flagship store. There's several of us in the back who do come to every meeting every week and know what a difficult process this was for you guys and how long this building has been empty. And I just want to thank everybody involved. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the audience? All right, questions or comments from members of the village council? Commissioner Newstead.
I have one. Forgive my memory from a year ago, but was it always contemplated to have the front door and the main entrance face the frontage road? Or is that a new?
I believe it's always been, has always been the idea to have it front.
Maybe we haven't had this rendering, but seeing this now in this fashion with the signage and everything, it just looks fantastic. It'll mirror and match more to what's happening at the PGA Tour Superstore there, really bringing out that area on the frontage road, making it a focal point for people passing by from Lombard coming to Downers Grove. You know, I think that in my comments, this is a great win for our our village, our community economic development corporation has worked extremely hard to keep this project and this process going. And I think we do owe a lot to Mr. Cass and his network and connections with Art Van and their principals, because that's why we have them here. We can have a lot of conversation about economic incentive agreements. I'm kind of sorry Mr. Summers left, because it is up to us to have and address those petitions when brought forward. Not unlike any other petition, whether it's an economic incentive or not, it's up to the 7 of us to say yes or no. We said yes to this, we believe in this project, and I believe that it's going to be a great project for our community. Thank you.
The amount of investment in the building and the design of the building has changed dramatically in the year since we last saw this project. Obviously, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but everybody on staff, everybody on the EDC who's reviewed this can recognize the amount of investment and improvement that Mike Rupert and John Wyatt and their team have brought to this. And we're very happy to recommend this improvement, which is well beyond signage.
Thanks, Commissioner. Other questions? Comments?
Thank you, Mayor. The former plan commissioner in me couldn't help but comment that I believe all the PUD requirements are met here. I think this is a great win for Downers Grove, and thank you to the folks at Art Van and to Michael Casa and the entire staff. This is a flagship store, as has been said. It's a site that has a number of challenges because of the frontage road and access to Highland, access to Butterfield, and I think as a result of that, the additional signage is needed. I look forward to sometime in the very long-term future starting to address some of those transportation challenges and access challenges. But that's for a meeting somewhere far into the future. But I think this is a good win, and I look forward to voting in favor of it. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
I just have one comment.
Please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I will be supporting this, but I think the other thing that we need to point out, since we brought up the economic incentive from over a year ago that we all voted on and supported, is that when this being a flagship store is going to spur economic redevelopment in that whole area. And you can just see not only what Costco did in the area of Bolingbrook, Woodridge, where it's at, where their Art Van is, but now there's more commercial growth there. So it has been said many times tonight that this building sat vacant for how many years? And it had how many more years possibly of sitting vacant because of the long-term lease that Home Expo had, which is Home Depot, right? Okay, I got my memory still working. And so this to me is a no-brainer. And I agree with Commissioner Doucette. I'm sorry to see the resident leave, because this is what it's all about, spurring the economic development so we could have the sales tax revenue, so we don't rely on the residents. So I actually had nothing to say until we had input, so thank you.
Well, thank you. And clearly there was no expectation of having a dialogue tonight about economic incentive, but the problem is sometimes these things are raised, and if you don't know the background or the context, then one can wonder, well, why are you providing this incentive to a quote-unquote large company? And I think it's really important to understand a couple things. One, the only thing with respect to this topic tonight that is even on the table is removing a condition that's actually beneficial to us. That's something that the petitioner had asked for previously and now no longer wants to have. So if they no longer want to have it, easy to say, fine. If you don't want it, then we'll take it out. And the other one was just simply shifting a date. That's the only thing that was on the table here tonight. It unfortunately sparked a conversation out of context of something that had been analyzed very closely a year ago after a great deal of hard work by a lot of people to bring what is, number one, a tremendous aesthetic improvement to that building by any measure. I don't know whose eye or what the holder would think otherwise, but by any measure, it's a vast improvement in the aesthetics of that building, which can only help our community. Number two, it turns a fallow property into one that is going to be highly productive and we hope hugely successful. And I would gather to say so far as to be a destination place in our community for people to come from outside, which is something that our economic development team works very hard to do. And number three, also return something to a situation where it was generating nothing in terms of sales tax, and now will be positively impacting our bottom line at a cost of absolutely nothing to the taxpayers, because the benefits are coming almost exclusively out of the increment that is being generated by this project itself. If it doesn't generate the increment, then there's nothing to rebate back. So at the end of the day, there's really no downside to this, which is why it's been described as a no-brainer. I only bring that up again because we went through this a year ago, and since it was raised in an unexpected context, I just wanted to lay that out here. Since this was first approved, I think all of these requested amendments are all completely responsible and reasonable and go far to make what was already a terrific project even better. And my only complaint about this whole thing is that we can't even get it done sooner, because we're very much looking forward to this project. As we discussed before tonight's meeting, are very, very pleased that Art Van chose to locate in Downers Grove, chose to locate what will be a flagship location in Downers Grove. I believe it will be a destination and will help continue to set Downers Grove apart from other communities, and we are greatly appreciative for that and look forward to working with you on what we hope is a wildly successful project. I don't think I could be any more positive than that if I tried.
I would just like to thank Michael and David and Stan and the council for all your help and cooperation. And I would just like to say that we did, and with Mike Rupert here, we have expanded this to become really a strong flagship, to kind of be the leader of the retail sector in this area, and really help be a significant contributor to the Downers Grove economic improvement. And so I will tell you, we have pressure on us to get this open, and our goal really is to open it before Memorial Day next year, and that is our goal to do that. So the whole thing we wanted to do to this, it's a scary site. When I joined Art Van and I looked at this, I worked in this area and I developed several projects in this area, and it was a scary building. And what we really wanted to do is create a very soft pedestrian level building that really will be attractive to the community and attract other retailers into that area. So that's our goal, and we also like to be a real partner with the community and a real good citizen. So we thank you again for your cooperation and your help. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing that. We're looking forward to it. Other final questions or comments from anyone? All right, terrific. Then we move on to 9E as an Edward.
9E is an ordinance establishing a special service area for the Dunham Subdivision Detention Basin. This is the last step in the process. It was started several months ago. This is the same process we've used for many subdivisions, as was mentioned earlier. Stan is here to answer any questions.
Hello again. I'm not sure that I have much more to say about this. As Dave said, we've talked about this a lot. The Dunham subdivision is on Dunham Road and Crystal Avenue. In July of 2014, there was an ordinance that was approved proposing the establishment of the SSA. On September 9th, we held a public hearing concerning the establishment of the SSA. At this point, village staff has not received any comments regarding the SSA. The SSA, as we noted, is really for this single piece of property, the proposed Dunham subdivision, and really just all about the stormwater management. Again, maintaining that. If the homeowner association does not maintain that, the village can enact the dormant SSA to provide funds to improve and make improvements to the detention basins or stormwater if something fails. And with that, if there's any questions, I can answer for you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the audience? Commissioner Durkin.
Can we get a construction update? The fence was up, the fence came down. The machine was there to knock the house down, the machine left, house is standing. And now we're still talking about amendments.
The developer, Anthony Pecoraro, is here tonight, could give us an update.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
At least we're not going to ask you about tax increment finance.
No, I just, update, because somebody called me that was over
some
there.
questions for myself, so.
I just want to answer them.
No problem. Well, we had planned originally to get the demolition permit and stormwater permit together. Unfortunately, because the Army Corps, the project was put on the manager's desk, and he went out of town for 4 months, and that held us up, meaning we lost the entire season of construction, and we did not want to begin the demolition without the stormwater permits. We didn't want to, just in case there was any issues that came up. But working with the village, it seems like we're going to be able to go in and get those permits this week, hopefully, if Julie Lomax has been, who we've been working with. There was just some final issues that we were taking care of. Hopefully, we can get the demolition in within the next week or two, and possibly even dig up the detention. I don't see us getting any further because of the weather, but that's where we're at this point.
Just to clarify, it's the Army Corps managers that take 4 weeks vacation and delay permits. The village
4 months. 4 months.
Yeah, we heard that.
4 weeks or 4 months, we wouldn't complain. We're working with them to expedite that. Our staff is working with county staff as well. We'd like, all of us would like to see this construction start.
And the reason we did have the equipment on site and funds is because we actually anticipated getting the stormwater permit at that time, and we weren't able to, so.
Well, it makes sense now that we know, so I appreciate you and grateful you were here tonight to answer it. So
Yeah, and
thank
I'm
you.
sure you guys have been getting plenty of questions from the neighbors, as we have as well, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, good question. Anything else?
It was only good because he was here to answer it.
Yes, you're right. It's still a good question.
Well, thank
Even
you.
better if it didn't answer. 9F.
All of the remaining items on tonight's first reading agenda have to do with mutual aid agreements for fire department responses. We've had these types of agreements in place for many, many years. They're an integral part of our emergency response. There are no substantive changes that affect operations. These are just updates and housekeeping amendments that we have to make to keep current with requirements. If you have any questions about these agreements, our Deputy Chief Pendelski is here to help answer them.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the audience? We're going to have to ask the Deputy Chief some questions about economic incentives. Any questions from the council? No, thank you. You're spared. Thank you.
That ends our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, terrific. Thank you for that. That brings us to item 10, the mayor's report. I have nothing to report out at this point in time, so that brings us to item 11, the manager's report. Mr.
No
President.
report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Very good. On to item 12, attorney's report. Mr. Trarka.
Thank you, Mayor. 5 items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance approving a planned development amendment to Plan Development Number 44 Butterfield Square Shopping Center to permit a 990 square foot sign package at 1021 Butterfield Road. An ordinance approving a First Amendment to an economic incentive agreement between the Village of Downers Grove and Art Van Furniture Midwest LLC. An ordinance authorizing an addendum to a mutual aid box alarm system agreement. An ordinance establishing Special Service Area Number 7 in the Village of Downers Grove. An ordinance proposing the establishment of Special Service Area Number 8 in the Village of Downers Grove, and providing for a public hearing and other procedures in connection therewith. They will all be on next week's active agenda. Thank you, Mayor. That is all.
Thank you. It brings us to item 13. Do any members of the village council have items of new business that they would like to raise with the rest of the council at this point in time? No itchy trigger fingers? Hearing none. Move on to item 14. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?